Drew waited 3 days after my parents gave him the cabin before offering me a way to earn my key back. He called from the kitchen I had rebuilt, holding his phone at an angle that showed off the blue cabinets behind him. "I've been running numbers," he said. "If I can book 2 weekends a month to start, it'll cover most of the carrying costs." On my screen, he became a forehead, one eye, then a full face again. "And I want you involved, Care. Seriously." I had been standing at my own kitchen counter, peeling the paper label off a bottle of beer. I stopped with half of it curled under my thumbnail. "Involved how? You know the place better than anybody." He smiled, relieved that I had asked. "I was thinking you could handle turnovers. Linens, supplies, cleaning. Make sure everything feels right before guests come. Turnovers. Yeah, housekeeping, basically. But more than that." Behind him, my grandmother's copper colander hung from a hook I had installed. The refrigerator hummed. I knew that hum. I had spent a Tuesday in February lying on that floor with a hairdryer because the old water line had frozen. Drew kept talking. Something about $90 per booking, flexible access, and how I would still be able to enjoy the cabin whenever it wasn't rented. I remember looking at his face and wondering what kind of person hears that offer and doesn't hang up. Then I remember realizing I was that kind of person. 6 nights earlier, my mother called to ask if I could bring a salad. She said it in the cautious voice she used when the request was only the visible portion of the request. "What else?" I asked. "Nothing else." "Mom." "Well, if you're stopping at Bell's, they have that sourdough your father likes, so salad and bread. And ice. You have an ice maker. It's making cloudy ice." I looked at the clock on my desk. I had 40 minutes left in the workday and an email open that I had already rewritten 3 times. Cloudy ice is still ice. Not in a drink. What are we celebrating? We have to be celebrating something to have your brother over? There it was. Drew had been back in town for 7 weeks, living in the furnished apartment over our parents' garage. He called it the loft, though the slanted ceiling forced him to lean sideways near the bed, and the only view was of my father's recycling bins. His marriage had ended in the spring. By August, the restaurant partnership he had spent 4 years bragging about had ended too. The restaurant was called Thistle, which no one in our family understood because there had not been a thistle, Scottish person, or particularly thorny vegetable anywhere in it. Drew had handled the front of the house. His former partner, Paul, had handled the food, money, scheduling, vendors, and, as it turned out, nearly everything else. Drew's version was that Paul had pushed him out. Paul's version, delivered to me during an accidental encounter near the frozen pizzas, was, "I love your brother, but he thinks charisma is a spreadsheet." Both versions could be true. "I'll get the bread," I told Mom. "And the salad. And the salad. You're a lifesaver." That was what she called me whenever I did something that prevented her from experiencing 15 minutes of inconvenience. At Bell's, I bought sourdough, salad greens, 2 lemons, a red onion, and a bag of clear ice. Then I doubled back for the dressing my father liked because I knew my mother would have forgotten it, which was how the whole system worked. She forgot. I remembered. She called me a lifesaver. Everybody survived. Their house was the same beige 2-story I had grown up in, with the same brass mailbox and a maple tree that had begun lifting the front walk. Dad had marked the raised concrete with orange spray paint 2 years earlier. Every few months he refreshed the paint instead of calling someone to fix it. Drew opened the door before I knocked. "Look who decided to attend." He hugged me with one arm and took the ice with the other. He smelled like cedar soap and the cologne Mom had given him 3 Christmases in a row. "I brought provisions." "Excellent. We've been trapped here for days. You live above a 3-car garage, trapped very comfortably." He looked better than he had the week he came home. His beard was trimmed. He had traded his rumpled restaurant shirts for one of Dad's old flannels, sleeves rolled to the forearms. Drew had always been able to look as if he belonged wherever he stood. Behind a host stand, he looked like he owned the building. In my parents' foyer at 35, he looked like the prodigal son in a catalog for expensive firewood. Mom hurried out of the kitchen and kissed my cheek. "You didn't have to get all this. You gave me a list. I said if you were already stopping. I wasn't." She had already turned away. "Frank, Caroline's here." Dad called from the den. "Did she bring the bread?" I held it over my head. "Your daughter has returned from the frontier." He came in smiling and kissed my temple. He had gotten thinner since his knee surgery, but he still carried himself like a man about to lift something he had specifically been told not to lift. "That's my girl," he said, taking the bread. Drew leaned toward me. "I'm apparently not anyone's girl. You could be if you brought sourdough." Dinner was pot roast, which explained why Mom had asked for salad. In her mind, lettuce erased gravy. We sat at the oak table with the extra leaf inserted, though there were only 4 of us. Mom had set out the good water glasses, the ones with thin gold rims that weren't supposed to go in the dishwasher but always did. I noticed them. I noticed the cloth napkins and the small butter dish shaped like a cow. I noticed Dad had changed out of the sweatshirt he usually wore at home. "What?" Mom said. "Nothing." "You're looking around. I'm sitting in a room. That's generally where I look." Drew laughed too loudly. Dad reached for the bread before Mom had finished saying grace. For the first 10 minutes, we talked about safe subjects. Dad's physical therapy, the maple roots, whether the grocery store had changed the recipe for its rotisserie chicken. Drew told a funny story about Mom coming upstairs without knocking and catching him doing yoga in his underwear. "I thought he'd fallen," she said. "I was in downward dog. You were on the floor making a terrible sound. That's breathing. It sounded medical." Drew imitated her backing out with both hands over her eyes, and even Dad laughed hard enough to cough. I did too. That was the difficult thing about my brother. He could make a room lighter without appearing to carry anything into it. Mom waited until she was slicing the second piece of pot roast for Dad. "So," she said, "we've been doing a lot of talking." Drew lowered his eyes to his plate. I put down my fork. "About what?" "About the future," Dad said. "The future of what?" Mom gave him a look. He chewed faster. Drew reached for his water and missed the stem on his first try. Something cold slipped beneath my ribs. The cabin came to mind immediately, though I couldn't have said why. Maybe because Dad had mentioned selling it again the previous month. Maybe because I knew the property tax bill came in August. Maybe because the good glasses were out. "Are you selling Lake Alder?" I asked. Mom's face opened in surprise. "No." "Oh, honey, no." I exhaled. "We found a way to keep it in the family," she said. Dad wiped his mouth and pushed his chair back. He stood carefully, putting most of his weight on his left leg, and went to the sideboard. Drew looked at me then. It lasted less than a second, but I saw apology arrive too early. Dad returned with a small wooden box. I knew the box. It had belonged to my grandfather and still had a dark ring on the lid from the night he set a sweating bourbon glass on it. Mom had once used it for stamps. Dad placed it beside Drew's plate. "Go on," he said. Drew didn't touch it. "Dad," he said quietly, "we're all here." Mom folded her hands beneath her chin. She had tears in her eyes already, and for one irrational moment, I thought Drew was sick. Then he opened the box. Inside, on faded green felt, lay the brass cabin key. Not just a key like it, the key. I recognized the oval scratch near the teeth and the red thread I had tied through the top while I was refinishing the front door. I had used red because I kept losing it among my tools. Drew stared at it. Dad put his hand on his shoulder. "It's yours." The room went still in a way that seemed to magnify small sounds. The refrigerator motor, a car passing outside, Drew's thumb brushing the key. "What do you mean, his?" I asked. Dad sat down again. We transferred the cabin to Drew. Mom spoke quickly. "We've been thinking about what would be best for everyone, for the family." I looked at Drew. "You knew?" "Not until recently." "How recently?" He rubbed his mouth. "A couple weeks." A laugh escaped me, but there was nothing funny in it. "That's recently?" "We wanted to tell you together," Mom said. "You've known for 2 weeks, and you let me drive up there Sunday to seal the deck." Drew's face tightened. I didn't know you were doing that. There's a schedule on the refrigerator. I don't live here. You eat here every night. Caroline, Dad said. No, I'm trying to understand the timing. Mom reached toward me, then redirected her hand to her napkin. Your brother needs a fresh start. There it was, laid on the table between the gravy and the butter cow. I looked at Dad. And I don't? You're doing fine, he said. The words landed with the clean force of something practiced. Mom nodded as if he had made an important point. You have your house. You have your career. You've built a good, stable life. I built the cabin. You restored it, Dad said. With what distinction exactly? We owned it. Drew closed the box. Dad's face changed. Not much. His eyebrows came together, and his voice took on the patient heaviness he used when explaining why a thermostat shouldn't be set above 68. Nobody is denying what you did. We're grateful. Grateful. Deeply grateful, Mom added. I turned to her. You told me everyone knew it was really mine. Her lips parted. I watched her remember saying it. Not once, but many times. On the porch while I pulled rusty nails from the railing, in the kitchen after I paid to replace the water heater, over the phone when I worried that pouring my savings into property I didn't own was stupid. Oh, Caroline, she said softly, that was never a legal promise. I didn't say it was. Dad leaned back. Then let's not turn this into something it isn't. I stared at him. What is it? A family decision. I'm family. Of course you are. Then why am I hearing about it after it's done? Mom's tears spilled over. Drew looked at her, then at me, trapped between the two reactions and somehow still positioned as the person everyone needed to protect. He pushed the box an inch away. I can give it back, he said. Dad's hand came down flat on the table. The glasses jumped. Don't be ridiculous. For 1 second, I thought Drew might argue. Something sharp appeared in his expression, something almost like anger on my behalf. Then Mom touched his wrist. You need this, she whispered. He looked at the key again. That was the moment. Not when Dad said it was his. Not when Mom explained that my stability had disqualified me from receiving the thing I had saved. It was when Drew curled his fingers around the brass key and let our mother comfort him for taking it. I stood up. Mom blinked. You haven't had dessert. I'm not hungry. It's lemon pie. I bought the lemons. No one said anything. I picked up my purse from the back of the chair. On the way out, I passed the framed photograph Mom kept in the hallway. It showed all 4 of us on the cabin porch the summer I finished the exterior. Dad held a paintbrush he had used for maybe 20 minutes. Mom stood beside him in a clean white shirt. Drew had arrived just before dinner and was holding a beer. I was in the back, sunburned, smiling with blue paint on both knees. Mom followed me to the door. Please don't leave like this. I put my hand on the knob. How would you like me to leave? She looked toward the dining room where Dad was speaking to Drew in a low voice. I just want you to remember that we love you both. I opened the door. Behind her, I could see Drew through the hallway. He was still sitting at the table with the wooden box in front of him. The red thread hung between his fingers. I stood on the porch long enough to hear the lock turn behind me. It wasn't dramatic. Mom always locked the door after dark. Still, the click went through me. I carried the bag of salad ingredients back to my car because nobody had opened them. The clear ice had already vanished into the freezer. Dad kept the bread. At the end of their street, I pulled into the parking lot of a closed dentist's office and sat with both hands on the steering wheel. My phone lit up before I had decided whether I was crying. Mom, please text when you get home. Then Dad, your mother is very upset. Then Drew, I'm sorry. I read his message twice. Not I didn't know, not I'm giving it back. Just the kind of apology you could lay over anything without changing its shape. I turned my phone face down and drove home. My house was a white bungalow on a narrow lot, 12 minutes from my parents and 48 minutes from Lake Alder if traffic behaved. I had bought it 8 years earlier because it was what I could afford alone. The listing had called the backyard intimate. It was roughly the size of my parents' dining room rug. That night, it felt smaller. I left the salad bag on the counter, opened a beer, and went out to the back steps. My neighbor's motion light clicked on and illuminated a patch of fence, 2 metal chairs, and a ceramic planter full of dead basil. I had meant to replace the basil. I had meant to repaint the back door. I had meant to do a lot of things at my own house, but every spring the cabin needed opening, every summer it needed maintenance, and every fall there was one more job I wanted done before the snow came. My phone buzzed inside. I let it. 10 minutes later, somebody knocked. "Go home," I called. He opened the outer storm door but didn't try the knob. "I brought your salad. I don't want it. There are lemons in here too, I know. I bought them." He stood behind the glass holding the paper bag against his chest. The porch light flattened his face and made him look tired. "Can I come in?" "No." "Can you come out?" "No." He looked down at the bag. "We're not going to get very far like this. I'm already home. I'm as far as I need to get. Caroline." The way he said my name almost worked. Drew had a private voice he used when it was just the two of us, stripped of the performance he gave our parents. That voice had talked me through a panic attack in an airport bathroom when I was 29. It had called me the night his marriage ended and said, "I think I broke the one good thing I had." I opened the door, but stayed inside. He offered me the bag. I didn't take it. "I didn't ask them for the cabin," he said. "You just accepted it." I barely had time to process what was happening. "You had 2 weeks. They told me what they were considering 2 weeks ago. It wasn't final. And during those 2 weeks, it didn't cross your mind to mention it?" "Of course it did. That was worse." I folded my arms. He shifted the bag to his other hand. "Every time I tried to bring it up, Mom said they wanted to tell you themselves. You're 35. I know how old I am. Do you?" His mouth tightened. "I came here to apologize." "No, you came here to be forgiven. What's the difference? An apology is about what you did. Forgiveness is about making you feel better afterward." He let out a breath through his nose and looked past me into the house. "You think I feel good? I think you have a cabin." "That's not fair." I laughed once. "You should probably retire that phrase for a while." He set the grocery bag on the porch. "I meant what I said. I can give it back. Then do it." His eyes came to mine. For a second, neither of us moved. He had offered it at the table because Dad had embarrassed him and Mom had started crying. He had expected me to refuse out of pride, or maybe expected Dad to refuse for him. Standing on my porch without an audience, the sentence had weight. "I need some time," he said. "There it is. This is a big decision. It wasn't when they made it for me. They're trying to help me. I know, I've lost a lot this year. I know that too. You haven't even asked what I might do with the place." That stopped me, mostly because I hadn't realized there was supposed to be a plan. "What are you going to do?" He pushed both hands into his jacket pockets. "I have ideas, of course. Can you not do that?" "Do what?" "Make everything I say sound stupid before I've said it." I looked at him. He wasn't wrong. That irritated me more. "Fine," I said. "Tell me." He glanced toward the street, gathering his words. "The lake has changed. People come up year-round now. The winery does events. There's the new trail system. Short-term rentals are doing well. I felt my shoulders go rigid. You're going to rent it out. I'm thinking about it. You've owned it for 40 minutes. And I'm trying to take the responsibility seriously. You're trying to monetize it before dessert." His face reddened. "I need income, Caroline. Then get a job. I'm working on that. You just had one." He flinched, and I hated the part of myself that was glad. Drew glanced back at his car. This was a mistake. Which part? Coming here. He stepped off the porch, leaving the bag by my door. I watched him walk away. At the sidewalk, he turned. "For what it's worth, I told them you should be included." "Included in what?" "The cabin, decisions, access, whatever this becomes." I stared at him. "That's not ownership," I said. "No, it's not. At least he had the decency not to dress it up." The next morning, Mom called at 7:12. I was brushing my teeth. I watched her name fill the screen until it stopped, then start again. On the third call, I answered with toothpaste still in my mouth. Are you hurt? What? No. Is Dad hurt? No. Then why are you calling 3 times before 7:15? I didn't sleep. I spat into the sink and rinsed my mouth. I did. That was a lie, but she didn't need it. I'm afraid you misunderstood what we were trying to do. No, I understood. We didn't take something from you and hand it to Drew. I looked at myself in the mirror. One side of my hair was flattened against my head. That's exactly what you did. The cabin belonged to your father and me. I know. Then you must see that we had the right to decide. Having failed to convince me it wasn't taken, she had moved quickly to explaining why they were allowed to take it. You had the right, I said. She went quiet. My mother could defend herself against shouting. Agreement made her nervous. I'm not saying we handled every part perfectly. What part would you change? Well, perhaps we should have talked to you sooner. Before or after the transfer? Caroline, please don't interrogate me. I'm asking a question. We wanted to avoid putting you in the position of feeling you had to approve. You didn't want me to approve. You wanted me to absorb it. Her breath caught. That's a cruel thing to say. It's 7 a.m, Mom. I haven't had time to make it pretty. She began crying quietly, not theatrically. That would have been easier. Mom cried like someone embarrassed by her own body, breaths clipped short, voice thinning as she fought to keep it usable. You know how much I love you, she said. I sat on the closed toilet seat. Yes. And you know we're proud of you. Yes. Your brother is barely holding himself together. I know. He needs a reason to get up in the morning, and you decided to give him mine. The crying stopped. Neither of us spoke for several seconds. I have to get ready for work, I said. She hung up without saying goodbye. At work, I made it until 10:30 before opening the cabin folder on my computer. It contained receipts, paint colors, measurements, photographs, appliance manuals, and a document titled Lake Alder Winter Checklist in capital letters because Dad ignored anything that looked optional. I had created the folder after the first burst pipe, then kept adding to it until the cabin had a better medical history than most people. I clicked through photographs instead of working. The first summer, the living room ceiling had sagged from water damage. Drew had come up one Saturday to help me tear it out. He lasted until noon when a friend called with concert tickets. Before leaving, he took a picture of me in goggles and a dust mask. He posted it with the caption, "My sister, the lumberjack." I had laughed at the time. There were pictures of Dad teaching me to cut trim, both of us pretending not to notice when his hands began shaking. Mom sat on drop cloths and removed old wallpaper in strips no wider than a shoelace. She complained for 6 straight hours and returned the next weekend with sandwiches. It hadn't all been mine alone. That was part of what hurt. I hadn't restored a building while my family stood outside applauding. We had shared days there, bad coffee, splinters, arguments over stain colors, Drew showing up late with steaks and somehow being welcomed like he'd brought electricity. I closed the folder. A message from Dad waited on my phone. Give your mother a little grace. She's caught in the middle. I typed, there is no middle, then deleted it. At lunch, I drove to a sandwich shop and ate in my car. Halfway through, an unknown number with a Lake Alder area code called. Caroline Mercer? A woman asked. Yes. This is Pam from North Shore Propane. I'm confirming Friday's delivery. I closed my eyes. The propane account was in my name because setting it up had been easier than teaching Dad how to use the website. There's been a change in ownership, I said. I'll call you back with the new contact information. That afternoon, I made a list on a yellow legal pad. Propane, internet, septic service, chimney inspection, plowing. Insurance wasn't mine. Taxes weren't mine. But almost every ordinary service that made the cabin function led back to my phone number, my email, or my debit card. I had never totaled it because Dad sometimes gave me cash and Mom sometimes bought groceries, and because, as Dad had reminded me, families weren't supposed to keep score. Now I had a score spread across 3 years of bank statements. I was still adding numbers when Drew called from the cabin. He swung his phone through the kitchen, showing me the cabinets, the counters, the old pine table. "I've been running numbers," he said. Then he offered me the housekeeping job. He described it carefully. $90 per turnover. Possibly more once bookings picked up. I could coordinate supplies, keep a key, use unbooked weekdays with advance notice. He talked for nearly 4 minutes before realizing I hadn't answered. "Well," he said. On my legal pad beneath chimney inspection, I wrote, "Housekeeper." Then I drew a line under it. "Drew, are you offering to pay me to clean the cabin I paid to restore?" He winced. "When you say it like that?" "How do you say it?" "I'm trying to keep you part of this." I looked at the list of accounts beside my hand. "No," I said. His expression went blank. No to cleaning. No to being part of it. I turned the legal pad sideways and began writing a second list. Mine. The first word was quilts. Drew stared at me through the phone. "What does that mean?" "It means I'm not cleaning it. I'm not managing it. I'm not coordinating supplies." "Okay." He lifted one hand. "I heard you the first time. You're still using my internet account." "What?" "The cabin internet is in my name. So is propane septic service, chimney inspection, and plowing." He lowered the phone, and for a moment I was looking up his nose. "I didn't know that." "I know. Can you just send me the passwords?" "I can send you the contact information. You'll need to open your own accounts." "Why?" "Wouldn't it be easier to transfer them?" "For you." He walked out of the kitchen. Cabinets moved behind his head, then the narrow hall, then the living room where sunlight fell across the floor I had sanded on my hands and knees. "You're making this harder than it needs to be. I'm separating my bills from your property. 90 was just a starting number, by the way. This isn't about the number. Everything is about the number when somebody starts listing what they paid for." I went still. Drew must have seen it because his expression softened immediately. "That came out wrong. It came out very clearly. I meant we could talk about compensation. For the work you already did too, maybe. I don't know. I'm trying to figure this out. Figure out your accounts first. Care. I'll email the phone numbers." He stepped into the living room. Over his shoulder, one of Grandma's quilts lay across the back of the couch, the red and white one with uneven stars. She had sewn it during the year Grandpa tried to quit smoking and secretly kept cigarettes in the tractor shed. "I'm coming up Saturday," I said. Drew frowned. "Why?" "To get my things." "What things?" I looked past his face at an entire room full of them. My things. After we hung up, I added to the list until it covered both sides of the page. Some items were obvious. The quilts had been left to me when Grandma died. The blue mugs came from a pottery market in Vermont. I had receipts for the lamps, the toaster, the wool blankets, the cookware, and the small television Dad insisted nobody needed until playoff season. Other things occupied the blurred territory my family preferred. The framed photograph of Grandma standing on the dock belonged to everyone emotionally and no one practically. Mom had given me the copper colander because she hated polishing it, then spent years calling it our colander. The old wooden oars had come with the cabin, but the canoe paddles were mine. I had bought them after one of the oars cracked, and Drew attempted to repair it with silver duct tape. I crossed out the television, then I wrote it back down. At 3:15, my coworker Tess rolled her chair into my doorway and watched me highlighting bank statements. "Are you committing tax fraud?" she asked. "Reverse Christmas." She waited. Tess had black hair cut bluntly at her chin and a gift for remaining silent until people became uncomfortable enough to tell her the truth. We'd worked together for 9 years. Once during a fire drill, she stood beside me in the parking lot for 12 minutes before saying, "So are you ever going to explain why you're wearing 2 different shoes?" I told her about dinner. Not everything. Just enough. When I got to the housekeeping offer, her eyebrows lifted so high they disappeared beneath her bangs. "He offered you a job." "Yes. Cleaning your own cabin." Technically, his cabin. Don't defend him while I'm deciding how much I hate him. I'm not defending him. You used technically. That's a gateway word. I slid the legal pad across my desk. I'm going up Saturday. Tess read the list. You need boxes. I have boxes. You need a truck. I have an SUV. You need a friend with a truck. You drive a Corolla. My boyfriend has a truck. I'm not bringing you and Marcus into this. Marcus lives for other people's conflict. It lets him avoid his own. I smiled despite myself. Tess tapped the list. What about the dining table? Came with the cabin. The rocking chair. Dad repaired it. Curtains? I made them, but the fabric was Mom's. She nodded gravely. Joint custody. Don't say custody. Right. Curtains go into foster care. I laughed, then covered my face with both hands because the laugh came out too close to a sob. Tess stopped joking. You don't have to do it all at once. If I leave things there, Drew will treat them like they came with the property. Probably. And if I ask, Mom will turn every lamp into a referendum on whether I love her. Definitely. I looked at my list. I want to be done before the story changes. Tess understood that too. In my family, speed mattered. Given enough time, an event could be softened, sanded, and refinished until everybody remembered something more comfortable. By Thanksgiving, Drew wouldn't have accepted the cabin. He would have rescued it from being sold. By Christmas, I wouldn't have been excluded. I would have chosen to step back because I was busy. Marcus and I will be at your house at 7, she said. You don't have to. That phrase means nothing to me. Mom called Friday evening while I was flattening boxes in the living room. Your brother says you're emptying the cabin. I'm picking up what belongs to me. Caroline, the cabin is full of family things. I know the difference. Do you? She said it softly, which made it sharper. I stopped folding the bottom flaps of a box. What do you think I'm going to take? I don't know. You won't talk to me. We're talking right now. You know what I mean. In the background, a cabinet closed. Dad said something I couldn't make out. Mom lowered her voice. I don't want this to become ugly. Then you shouldn't have made me find out at dinner. We can't undo that. You could. Silence. She had no answer because undoing it would require doing something, and she had called to change my feelings. The quilts should stay, she said finally. They belong at the lake. They belong to me. Your grandmother made them for the cabin. Grandma made them for beds. She left them to me. She never imagined you'd take them away out of spite. The box flap bent under my thumb. I'm not doing this out of spite. What would you call it? Taking my belongings home. You have no use for 3 heavy quilts in that little house. There it was. My little house. The adequate life that proved I needed nothing. I'll find room. You're punishing all of us. No. I'm removing myself from something that isn't mine. You keep saying things like that as if we told you never to come back. I thought of Drew, explaining how I could use unbooked weekdays with advance notice. You didn't have to. Dad took the phone from her. Caroline. Hi, Dad. This has gone far enough. I haven't even gone anywhere yet. Don't get cute. The old response rose immediately. Lower my voice, make him comfortable, let him believe he had restored order. I kept sealing the box. I'll be at the cabin tomorrow morning. Drew knows. You're going to upset your mother. She's already upset. You know what I mean? Everybody kept saying that, usually when the words they had chosen failed them. I'm taking the things I bought and the things Grandma left me. I'm not damaging anything. I'm not taking fixtures. You put those things there for the family. I put a new roof there for the family too. I'm leaving it. That's not funny. It wasn't a joke. He breathed heavily into the phone. I don't recognize you right now. I wrote bedroom lamps on the side of a box. That makes 2 of us, I said. Tess and Marcus arrived at 7 the next morning with coffee, breakfast sandwiches, and an amount of equipment better suited to relocating a piano. Marcus had moving blankets, tie-down straps, work gloves, and a hand truck. How much does the colander weigh? I asked. He considered this. Emotional weight or shipping weight? Tess pointed at him. See? He's perfect. Marcus was a broad, gentle man who repaired commercial elevators and became nervous around my mother. At Thanksgiving the year before, Diane had asked whether he planned to marry Tess. He had dropped a spoon into the gravy. "I appreciate the help," I told him. "I was promised baked goods." "You were promised nothing," Tess said. "I inferred baked goods." The drive north was quiet after the first half hour. Trees crowded closer to the road, maples just beginning to show orange at their edges. When Lake Alder appeared through the trunks, flat and silver under the morning sky, my body reacted before my mind did. My shoulders loosened. I rolled down the window. The air smelled like wet leaves and wood smoke. For 6 years, the first glimpse of the lake had meant I was arriving somewhere that knew me. The cabin sat at the end of a gravel lane beneath tall pines, cedar siding dark from the previous night's rain. The porch railing was still the deep green I had painted it. 3 copper caps gleamed on the posts. I had added those in June after Mom saw them in a magazine. A new wooden sign hung near the driveway. "Alder House," it said in white script. Below it, in smaller letters, "Rest, Return, Remember." Tess parked behind me and got out. "Did you name it that?" "No." Marcus studied the sign. "I don't know why, but it feels expensive. There were tire tracks in the soft ground. Drew's car wasn't there, though he had said he might come by later. My key still worked. When I opened the door, the familiar smell came out to meet me. Pine boards, coffee, a trace of cold fireplace ash. For a second, I forgot why I had brought boxes. Then I saw a stack of glossy cards on the entry table. "Alder House, your private place to come home." The photograph on the front showed the living room at sunset. Grandma's star quilt warmed the couch. My blue mugs sat on the coffee table. The lamps were lit. In the corner, the copper colander caught the last orange light. Tess picked up a card. "He works fast." I turned it over. The back listed 6 bedrooms, which was impressive for a cabin with 3. Drew had apparently counted the loft, the sunroom, and the window seat. "Your brother has a creative relationship with architecture," Marcus said. I set the card down. We worked room by room. I took the quilts first, folding each one along Grandma's old creases, the red and white stars, the green wedding ring pattern, the heavy blue one she called ugly even after everyone disagreed. In the kitchen, I packed the mugs, colander, cast iron skillet, Dutch oven, knives, and the yellow mixing bowls. I left the everyday plates because Mom had bought them. I left the silverware because nobody knew where it came from. Every object required a verdict. Mine, theirs, cabin, family. By noon, the place had begun to look unfamiliar, not empty exactly, less inhabited. Marcus carried the television out under one arm. Tess was wrapping a ceramic lamp when gravel cracked beneath tires outside. A car door slammed. Drew entered without knocking and stopped in the middle of the kitchen. His eyes moved from the open cabinets to the boxes, then to the pale rectangle on the wall where the television had been. "What the hell are you doing?" I folded the flaps over the blue mugs. Exactly what I told you I was going to do. Drew stepped around a box, marked kitchen, and opened the nearest cabinet. 3 white plates sat on the shelf where 12 blue mugs had been. "You took the dishes." I took my mugs. "The listing photos have those mugs. Then take new pictures." He looked at the glossy cards on the entry table, then back at me. "You can't be serious." Tess appeared in the doorway with the wrapped lamp against her chest. She looked from Drew to me. "Should I keep going?" "Yes," I said. "No," Drew said. Marcus came in behind her carrying 2 empty boxes. "I'm going to put these down." He placed them on the floor with the care of a man handling explosives. Drew pointed at the lamp. "That stays." Tess hugged it closer. "Not the person you should tell." "I bought it," I said. "There's another one upstairs. There better be." "They're a pair. I bought that one too." His jaw moved. He went into the living room and stopped where the television had been. The cable hung from the wall beside 4 screw holes in the paneling. "You took the TV." "Yes, why?" "Because it's mine. You have a TV. I'm allowed to have 2. That thing is 6 years old. Then you won't miss it." Drew turned in a slow circle, taking inventory. Without the quilts and lamps, the room looked cooler. The couch was plain brown. The window seat was bare except for 2 pillows Mom had bought at a church sale. Sunlight hit the floor without anything soft to catch it. He looked genuinely shaken. I had expected anger. The shock bothered me more, as if he had never considered that the cabin's warmth came from objects owned by actual people. "You're stripping the place," he said. "No, I'm not. You took half the kitchen." "I took my half of the kitchen. That's not how a kitchen works. It is today." He followed me as I went upstairs. Tess waited until he passed, then widened her eyes at me. Marcus pretended to study the fireplace damper. In the front bedroom, I removed 2 framed botanical prints from the wall. Drew stood in the doorway. "Those were Grandma's." "No, those came from a flea market in Kenosha. They look old. They're pretending." "Fine, take them. I'm going to." He watched me wrap the first frame in newspaper. "What about the mattresses? What about them? You bought those." "I'm leaving them." "Oh, how generous." I set the wrapped frame into a box. "You want me to take them?" "No, Caroline, I don't want you to take the mattresses." "Then don't make me defend leaving them." He paced to the window. The lake showed between the pines, bright enough to hurt. "I have the photographer coming Tuesday." "I didn't know. I told you I was setting up a rental. You offered me $90 to clean it. You didn't send me a business schedule. Can we leave the stuff in place through Tuesday?" "No. You can pick it up afterward. I have a truck now. I'll bring it all to your house." "No." He put both hands on his head. "For God's sake, Care. I've already spent money on the cards. I paid for a listing consultant. I have somebody coming to photograph the place. That's not my problem. I know it's not your problem. You've made that incredibly clear." I stopped wrapping the second frame. "You've owned this place for less than a week, and somehow I'm already responsible for protecting your investment. I'm asking for 4 days. You're asking for my things to make your property look valuable." His hands fell. For once, he had no immediate answer. Downstairs, a box slid across the floor. Tess said something to Marcus in a low voice. Drew sat on the edge of the bed. "I didn't know all this was yours. What did you think?" "I don't know. That it was here. It got here somehow. Mom brought things up. Dad brought things up. Yes. And you. Mostly me." He rubbed his palms against his jeans. "I didn't keep receipts every time somebody carried in a lamp. I did." "You kept receipts for cabin lamps?" "I kept receipts because I was spending money on a property I didn't own." He looked up. That was the first time all morning he seemed to understand that the list had existed before his name was on anything. "Then why did you keep spending it?" I looked around the bedroom. The question wasn't cruel. That made it harder to answer. The pine headboard had come from Grandma's room. I had repaired a split down the middle with wood glue and clamps while Dad sat beside me, handing me tools I had not asked for. Mom had sewn the curtains from leftover fabric. Drew had helped carry the dresser upstairs, complaining theatrically on every step, because Mom kept saying the cabin would be mine someday. Drew looked down again. "She said that?" "You know she did." I heard her joke about it. It wasn't a joke when the roof needed replacing. He ran a hand over the quiltless bedspread. "What do you want me to do?" "You know what you can do. You want me to give it back." "Yes." "And then what happens? The cabin becomes mine." "No, I mean to me." I stared at him. He laughed without humor and stood up. "That's what nobody wants to say. Mom and Dad hand it back to you. Everybody admits they made a terrible mistake. You get the place you were always supposed to have. What happens to me? You find somewhere else to make money. It's not just money." "Then what is it?" He walked past me into the hall. I followed him downstairs. At the bottom, he turned. "It's one thing in my life that isn't wrecked. You've had it for 6 days. Exactly. Give me 6 damn days where I'm not the guy whose wife left and whose business partner changed the locks." I glanced toward Tess and Marcus. Both were in the kitchen now, very focused on wrapping the Dutch oven. Drew lowered his voice. I know how I look to you. I don't think you do. No? Unreliable. Spoiled. The family disaster. I didn't say that. You don't have to. You come into a room carrying a salad, and everybody can tell which one of us has health insurance. Despite myself, I almost smiled. He saw it and gave me the ghost of one back. That was Drew. He could find the loose thread in an argument and pull until something softened. Then he looked at the boxes. But you're doing this to make sure I fail. The softness disappeared. I'm doing this because you accepted what I built. It was never yours. He regretted it immediately. I saw the regret, but it didn't call the words back. Tess set the Dutch oven down. Marcus looked at the ceiling. I picked up the box containing the botanical prints. You're right, I said. That's what everybody keeps reminding me. Care, wait. I carried the box downstairs and outside. He followed me to the truck. I didn't mean it that way. There aren't that many ways to mean it. You said it yourself. Legally, I have never said legally. Technically, then. You're the one who needs technicalities. I just needed all of you not to lie to me. We didn't lie. I put the box into the truck bed harder than necessary. Glass shifted inside. Drew lowered his voice again. The cabin was always Mom and Dad's to decide. Yes, you keep agreeing, but you say it like a trap. Because you think their right to do it means I'm not allowed to be hurt. I never said that. You offered me a cleaning job. He looked away toward the lake. That was stupid. It was. I thought keeping you involved would help. I was already involved. I know. No, Drew, you didn't. You showed up here and saw a finished room. You thought it happened the way Mom's dinners happen. Like someone says, pot roast, and eventually there's pot roast. He shoved his hands into his pockets. The anger left his face, replaced by something smaller and harder to fight. I like those dinners, he said. So did I. For a few seconds, we stood beside the truck, listening to wind move through the pines. Then a second car turned into the gravel lane. Mom's silver SUV. Did you call her? I asked. No. Of course he hadn't needed to. Mom had probably called him before breakfast, then tracked his location through the family phone plan she pretended not to understand. She parked crookedly behind my car and got out wearing loafers, cream slacks, and a raincoat. Too nice for cabin work. Dad was not with her. Her eyes went to the loaded truck. Oh, she said. One syllable. Devastation on demand. Hi, Mom. She walked past me and peered into the truck bed. She touched the folded corner of the red and white quilt. You took these off the beds? They're mine. I know you keep saying that. Because people keep asking. Mom looked at Drew. I thought you were going to talk to her. I did. And? He gestured toward the truck. Her mouth thinned. Your father wanted to come, but his knee is bothering him. The implication hung there. Another injury I had somehow caused by failing to cooperate from a distance. Tess came out carrying a box. Mom's expression changed at once. Tess, I didn't realize this was a group event. I'm helping Caroline move some things. How kind. Tess smiled. I have a truck. It's Marcus's truck, Mom said. Marcus, still inside, became exceptionally quiet. I reached for the box. Mom looked toward the cabin. What exactly is left? Most of it. I'd like to see. You don't need permission. She flinched as if I had slapped the word across her face, then went inside. Drew stayed by the truck. You know she's going to lose it over the colander. She gave it to me. She remembers that differently. She gave it to me because she said copper was a ridiculous amount of work. That sounds like her. She wrapped it in newspaper and put it in my car. That also sounds like her. From inside came the sound of a cabinet door opening, then another. Caroline, Mom called. Drew closed his eyes. I went in. She stood in the center of the kitchen holding one of the glossy Alder House cards. The shelves behind her were sparse. A pale circle remained on the wall where the colander had hung. You took your grandmother out of this house, she said. I looked at the card in her hand. No. Drew put her in an advertisement. His face changed. Mom looked down at the photograph as if she had not understood what it showed until then. I picked up the last sealed box. The contact information for the utilities is on the table. My accounts close Monday. Drew stared at the sheet beneath the glossy cards. All of them? The ones in my name. What am I supposed to do by Monday? I shifted the box against my hip. What owners do, I said. Call. Drew looked at the sheet as if it were written in another language. Propane doesn't just shut off, does it? No, the account closes. You open a new one, and if I don't, then eventually you stop getting propane. Mom pressed 2 fingers to her forehead. This is vindictive. It's administrative. You know your brother doesn't understand these things. Drew turned to her. I understand propane. Then there's no problem, I said. He glared at both of us. I love being discussed while I'm standing here. Mom picked up the contact sheet. North Shore Propane, she read. What do we tell them? That you want propane. I mean about the account. They'll guide you through it. Do they need the property number? I don't know. You must know. You set it up. Yes, 6 years ago. I don't remember the conversation word for word. Mom's mouth tightened. She had driven 48 minutes to stop me from taking a colander and had somehow ended up opening a utility account. The day was already refusing to behave for her. Drew took the page from her. I'll handle it. She looked relieved for exactly 1 second, then suspicious. Today, they're probably closed. It's Saturday. I know what day it is, Mom. You just said, I'll call Monday. She folded her arms. Your sister apparently arranged for everything to end Monday. The accounts end Monday, I said. The services don't vanish at midnight. How are we supposed to know that? By calling. Drew laughed. It burst out of him before he could stop it. Mom stared. He covered his mouth, but his shoulders shook. What is funny? She asked. Nothing. Clearly something is funny. He looked at me, and I made the mistake of looking back. That did it. We both started laughing. It wasn't joy. It was pressure, escaping through a crack. Mom stood between us, offended and bewildered, while Drew leaned against the counter I had installed and laughed until his eyes watered. Propane, he managed. I put the box down because I was afraid I would drop it. Mom looked from one of us to the other. I'm glad the 2 of you are enjoying yourselves. That made us laugh harder. Then Mom began crying. Everything stopped. Drew straightened first. Mom. No, it's fine. She turned away and wiped beneath her eyes with the side of one finger. I'm just the idiot who thought we could keep this family together. The old mechanism clicked into place so smoothly I almost admired it. Drew moved toward her. My hands twitched at my sides. We knew our positions. He comforted. I fixed. Only this time I picked up the box. Goodbye, Mom. She turned. You're leaving? That was the plan. Like this? I glanced around the kitchen. I don't know what answer you want. I want you to stop acting as though we've done something unforgivable. I haven't decided what's forgivable. Her face crumpled again. Drew gave me a warning look. Care. No. You don't get to take over her side while holding my cabin key. His jaw tightened. Mom touched his arm. Don't. She wants a fight. I wanted a conversation before you gave it away. We knew you'd react like this. The sentence hung in the kitchen. Even Mom heard what she had admitted. I nodded once. So you hid it because you knew. That's not what I meant. It's exactly what you meant. I carried the box outside. This time, nobody followed. Tess and Marcus had loaded almost everything. The quilts lay beneath a moving blanket protected from the damp air. The television was strapped against the cab. My SUV held the fragile things and a paper grocery bag containing 3 jars of coffee, which I had bought but now felt ridiculous taking. You okay? Tess asked. No. Ready? Yes. Marcus closed the tailgate. Mom appeared in the doorway behind us. Drew stood several feet back with the utility sheet in one hand. I looked at the cabin one last time. The front windows reflected pines and sky. From outside, nothing had changed. The porch chairs sat angled toward the lake. The green railings shone. Grandma's rusted dinner bell hung beside the door because it belonged to the cabin, not to me. I had spent 2 weekends repairing that bell's bracket. My brain kept producing facts like evidence nobody had requested. As I got into my car, Mom called my name. I lowered the window. She wrapped her raincoat tighter. "What about Thanksgiving?" It was September. I almost asked what Thanksgiving had to do with any of this. Then I understood. Thanksgiving was mine. The turkey, the potatoes, the timing chart taped inside my pantry door. Mom brought cranberry sauce and told everyone she had tried to help. "I don't know," I said. Her eyes widened. "You always host." "I know. Are you saying we're not welcome in your home?" "I'm saying I don't know." Drew stepped onto the porch. "Mom, let her go." She looked back at him, wounded by the gentleness of it. I drove away before either of them could return me to my assigned position. At home, my little house swallowed the first 6 boxes and refused the 7th. Marcus put the television against the living room wall. Tess stacked the quilts on my bed. We filled the dining area with lamps, cookware, art, and a canoe paddle that reached almost to the ceiling when propped upright. The copper colander sat on my kitchen counter, bright and absurd. Tess turned slowly. "This is cozy. This is a warehouse. A cozy warehouse." Marcus carried in another box. "Where do you want this?" The side read, "Lake Books." I had forgotten the books, set it on top of the others. The others are starting to express structural concerns. Bedroom. There's a quilt situation in there. Bathroom. He waited. "Just leave it." By late afternoon, there was nowhere to sit except the back steps. I ordered pizza. Marcus found 3 beers in my refrigerator and brought them outside. "To reverse Christmas," Tess said. We tapped bottles. The dead basil occupied the 4th corner of our gathering like a relative no one had invited. Marcus looked through the kitchen window at the stacked boxes. "My uncle had a storage unit for 11 years, he said. Paid $18,000 to store furniture worth maybe $900. Is this meant to comfort me? No, I'm saying don't get a storage unit." Tess nudged him with her shoulder. "I could help you build shelves," he added. That was comfort, she told me. I smiled. After they left, the house became very quiet. I unwrapped one of the blue mugs and set it in the cabinet beside my everyday cups. It looked wrong there. Too large and too bright. At the cabin, those mugs belonged to slow mornings and wet bathing suits hanging over the porch rail. In my kitchen, under a bulb I kept meaning to replace, it was just pottery. I took it back out. That was when I cried. Not at dinner. Not while Mom accused me of stealing Grandma from the house. I cried on my kitchen floor with a blue mug in my lap because it had survived the move, and the place it belonged to had not. My phone rang from inside my purse. I let it ring. It stopped, then rang again. When I finally checked, it was Drew. I answered without speaking. "Hey," he said. "What?" "North Shore needs the tank serial number." I closed my eyes, then read them the tank serial number. "Where is it?" "On the tank." I looked. "Did you lift the metal cover?" A pause. "No." "Lift the cover." "Okay. And the internet company wants the previous account number. That's in the folder." "What folder?" "The gray binder in the desk." "I don't see a gray binder." "Top drawer." "There is no top drawer. It's a desk. The shallow drawer directly under the writing surface." "Oh." I heard wood scrape. "Found it." He flipped pages. "Why did you make a section for light bulbs?" "Because the kitchen fixtures take an unusual size. That is deeply unsettling." I wiped my face with my sleeve. "Anything else?" "The septic company said they usually come in October." "Yes." "Do I need to be there?" "No." "How do they get access?" "They know where it is." "Where is it?" "Behind the shed, under the flat stone." "What flat stone?" "The only flat stone behind the shed. Everything behind the shed is stone." "Drew?" "Right." "Sorry." He went quiet. I could hear him breathing, and beneath that, the hollow sound of the cabin. Without curtains and quilts, voices carried differently. "Mom left," he said. "Okay." She cried the entire drive home, according to Dad. Then she shouldn't have driven. I said the same thing. That did not help. I almost smiled. He cleared his throat. I'm sorry about what I said upstairs. Which part? That it was never yours. It wasn't. You know what I mean. I looked down at the mug in my hands. I really don't anymore. He sighed. Can I call if I can't find the tank number? You can call North Shore. Right. After we hung up, I put the blue mug in the cabinet and left it there. At 12:30, Drew texted, "They make everything impossible." I typed, "They didn't for me." I deleted it and sent him the customer service extension. That evening, Dad called. "Did you remind your mother about my therapy tomorrow?" The question arrived so naturally that I almost answered yes. No. A pause. Why not? Because I didn't know you needed me to. You always put it on the calendar. The appointment is on your card. What card? The one they gave you. Your mother has it somewhere. In the background, Mom said, "I do not." Dad covered the phone badly. She says she doesn't. Then call the therapist's office. They're closed. Call in the morning. They want 24 hours notice for cancellation. Are you canceling? No. Then go at the usual time. He sounded offended. I don't know the usual time. I sat at my dining table between boxes labeled linens and wall art. Dad, I'm not there. I'm aware of that. I mean, I can't find the card from my house. We're not asking you to find it. What are you asking? He went silent. Mom said something I couldn't hear. Finally, Dad cleared his throat. Nothing? We'll handle it. The next day, he arrived at therapy an hour early. Mom told me in a text that ended with, "Hope you're satisfied." I didn't answer. 3 days later, an email invitation appeared in my inbox. The subject line said, Alder House Preview Weekend. The photograph showed Grandma's quilt and my blue mugs exactly where they had been before I removed them. Under the image, Drew had written, "Come see what we're building. Family dinner Saturday. Caroline, I hope you'll be there. It won't feel right without you." A separate message arrived 2 minutes later. Also, quick question. "Do you still have the white serving platters?" I replied. "The platters are mine too." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, reappeared. I'm asking to borrow them for one dinner. I set my phone beside my keyboard. Tess rolled into my doorway. "You have the face." "What face?" "The one that says your family has found a new way to be astonishing." I turned my phone so she could read the messages. She leaned closer. "What we're building," she read. "Does he have a team now?" "Apparently. And he used old photographs. He paid for the cards before I took everything. Does the invitation mention that the pictured items have fled the property? No. Maybe the mugs signed a release." My phone buzzed. "Drew, Mom says the platters were a Christmas gift." Me. To me. Drew. "I know how gifts work, Carolyn." Me. "Recent evidence suggests otherwise." Tess made a low, appreciative sound. "That one can stay." I deleted it. Instead, I wrote, "I'm not lending cabin supplies to the cabin." He called immediately. "I'm not asking for cabin supplies," he said. "I'm asking for platters for a family dinner." "Then why did you ask right after sending the Alder House invitation?" "Because that's where the dinner is." "Buy platters. I'm trying not to spend money on things we already have. We don't already have them." "I do." There was a pause. "Do you hear yourself?" "Yes." "You're making me account for serving dishes now. You asked me for serving dishes. I'm trying to include you. You keep using that word to mean work. It's not work to bring a platter. It is if there's food on it. I didn't ask you to cook. Yet." He exhaled into the phone. Behind me, Tess silently held up 10 fingers, then 9, counting down to the moment he asked. "Mom was wondering if you'd make the potatoes," he said. Tess bent over, laughing without sound. "No. Fine. And I'm not bringing a salad. I didn't ask about salad. You were going to." I was not. "Bread?" He went quiet. I rubbed my forehead. "Drew, we need bread. Buy bread. All right?" Message received. "I don't think it is." Another pause. When he spoke again, the edge had left his voice. "Will you come?" I looked at the invitation on my screen. Who else will be there? A few people from the lake. Aaron and Nate, Julie Mason, the Parkers, a couple friends from town, potential guests, some, potential business partners. I don't have business partners, potential people you want to impress. It's a preview care. The point is to show people the place. And what do you need me for? He hesitated. That should have answered the question. Then he said, "Because you made it what it is." I looked at Tess. She had stopped laughing. "I want to acknowledge that," Drew continued. "I handled this badly. The housekeeping thing was insulting. I get that now. You got it quickly. I'm trainable. Are you? Come Saturday and find out." He sounded sincere. That was another difficult thing about Drew. His sincerity was real while he was feeling it. The problem was what happened when sincerity encountered inconvenience. "I'll think about it," I said. "Okay, I'm not bringing anything. I understand. Not even ice." He laughed. "We have an ice maker. It makes cloudy ice. Then cloudy ice shall be our burden." After we hung up, Tess watched me. "You're going." I said I'd think about it. "You're using technically with yourself now." Friday evening, Mom left a voicemail. She did not mention the platters. She said she hoped I would come because Drew was trying very hard. Dad's knee was still bothering him, and it would be lovely to have one peaceful evening as a family. The message had 3 separate jobs embedded inside it, but none were stated directly. Support Drew, help Dad, provide peace. At the end, she added, "And please don't wear the green sweater because Julie Mason has the same one." I listened twice, trying to decide which sentence annoyed me most. Saturday morning, I found the green sweater in the back of my closet. I wore blue. The preview dinner began at 5, which meant Mom expected people at 4:30 and began panicking at 3. At 2:17, she texted the family group, "Does anyone have fresh rosemary?" I did not answer. At 2:20. Never mind. At 2:26. The store only has those tiny plastic packages. At 2:31. "Caroline, is dried acceptable for the potatoes?" I wrote, "Yes," then deleted it. At 2:40, "I'll figure it out." At 3:08, Dad called. "Do you know where your mother put the long tablecloth?" "No, she says you packed it. I don't have it. She says it was in the sideboard. It might still be there." We looked. "Then I don't know." He lowered his voice. "She's in a state. I'm sorry. You're coming early, right?" "No, the invitation says 5. So you're coming at 5. "Yes." He made a dissatisfied sound. "Dad." "What? I'm a guest? I know that. Do you?" He hung up soon afterward. At 4:40, I sat in my car at the end of the gravel lane and watched headlights move between the trees. I had nearly turned around twice. Alderhouse's new sign had 2 small spotlights aimed at it. The words, "Rest, Return, Remember," glowed in the early dusk with the intensity of a command. Cars lined the driveway. I parked near the road so I wouldn't be blocked in. Someone had added lanterns to the porch. Through the front windows, I saw people moving against warm light. The cabin looked beautiful. It always looked beautiful from outside. Drew opened the door before I reached it. "You came." He wore a dark blue shirt and tan pants. His hair had been cut. He looked like the version of himself who used to circulate through Thistle on busy Friday nights, touching shoulders, remembering names, making each table believe he had been waiting for them. I said I might. "You look great. So do you." He hugged me. Not carefully. A real hug. For 1 second, I let myself lean into it. Then he stepped back. "No platters?" "No platters. I'm kidding." He held the door open. The living room had been restaged. A gray throw blanket covered the couch. New lamps sat on the side tables, both slightly too small. Someone had filled the window seat with 9 identical cream pillows, leaving no room for a person. Above the fireplace hung a wooden sign that said, "Gather." I looked at Drew. "Don't," he said. I didn't say anything. Your face did. Your wall did. It's temporary. Where did it come from? Mom. Of course. The blue mugs in the promotional photographs had been replaced by white ones printed with the outline of a pine tree. They sat on a tray beside a coffee machine I had never seen before. The machine had a handwritten sign explaining how to use it. It arrived yesterday, Drew said. I've made 47 cups of coffee. Did you sleep? Not in any meaningful sense. A woman called his name from the kitchen. He touched my elbow. Get a drink. I need to stop the appetizers from becoming a fire. I knew most of the people in the room, though not well. Julie Mason hugged me while holding a glass of white wine away from both our bodies. She did not wear the green sweater. Aaron and Nate Parker had owned a cottage across the cove for 15 years. Nate once helped me drag a fallen branch off the cabin roof. Aaron had brought soup after Dad's knee surgery. Look at this place, Aaron said. Drew tells us you're the genius behind it. Did he? He did. That loosened something in my chest. Nate shook my hand. You did good work. Thank you. What do you think of the new sign? I think it has words on it. He barked a laugh. Across the room, Drew looked at me and smiled. He seemed nervous, not triumphant. It occurred to me that he might actually be trying. I got a glass of wine. The kitchen counters were covered with trays. Mom stood at the stove in a burgundy blouse, stirring something in a saucepan. Dad sat at the pine table with his leg extended, slicing bread. The loaf was listing badly to one side. Mom saw me and pressed her free hand to her chest. You came. That seems to be everyone's reaction. She kissed my cheek. You look lovely. You too. Her eyes traveled over my blue sweater with visible relief. Dad lifted the knife. I've been drafted. I see that. Your mother says I cut too thick. Mom turned from the stove. I said unevenly, it all tastes the same. It doesn't look the same. I picked up a slice. One end was almost transparent. The other was thick enough to stop a door. It's rustic, I said. Dad pointed the knife at Mom. See? For a while it was almost normal. I talked to Erin about her new job. Nate told a long story about a raccoon in his chimney. Julie asked whether I had chosen the cabinet color, then requested the name because she wanted it for her laundry room. Nobody asked why Drew owned the cabin instead of me. If they knew, they were polite enough to avoid it. At 6, Drew tapped a spoon against his glass. He stood beside the fireplace under the gather sign while conversation faded. Thank you all for coming, he said. Some of you have known this place longer than I have, and some of you are seeing it for the first time. His eyes found mine. This cabin is still standing because of my sister. The room turned toward me. Heat climbed my neck. She spent years bringing it back, he continued. The roof, the floors, the kitchen, all of it. I'm lucky enough to be starting the next chapter. But she wrote the one that made it possible. People applauded. It was the exact acknowledgement I had wanted, and somehow it hurt more than silence. I smiled because all those faces were watching. Drew lifted his glass. To Caroline. To Caroline. Everyone repeated. Mom came beside me and squeezed my hand. See, she whispered. He knows. Dinner was supposed to follow. Instead, Mom disappeared into the kitchen with Drew. Their voices stayed low for less than a minute. What do you mean she canceled? Mom hissed. She's sick. She was fine yesterday. People become sick, Mom. The table isn't set. I'll do it. You have guests. I kept facing the fireplace. Dad appeared at my shoulder. The woman Drew hired to help serve can't come, he said. I heard. He waited. I sipped my wine. From the kitchen, Mom called, Frank, where are the water glasses? Dad muttered. Here we go, and limped away. I should have stayed in the living room. Instead, I went into the kitchen and opened the upper cabinet. The glasses are here, I said. Mom turned. I looked there. You looked in the other cabinet. Relief moved across her face. Oh, thank goodness. Could you set them out? I set out the glasses, then the silverware. Then I found the cloth napkins because Drew had put them in the pantry behind the coffee filters. Mom asked me to check the potatoes. Dad needed help carrying chairs from the sunroom. Drew pulled me aside to ask whether the wine should be open now or at dinner. One task became 6 before I noticed. Guests drifted toward the table. Mom hurried from the back hall holding an apron. White cotton, blue stripes. Mine, though I had left it because it hung on a hook and I'd forgotten it. She held it out to me. "Could you put this on? You'll get something on your sweater." I looked at the apron, then at her. "Why would I get something on my sweater? We need somebody to plate the food. You have somebody." "Drew. He has to host." "So do I." Her smile tightened. Around us, conversations continued, but people had begun listening in the careful way adults listened while pretending not to. "Caroline," she whispered, pressing the apron into my hands. "Please don't embarrass your brother." I looked down at the apron in my hands. A damp spot darkened one corner where Mom had been gripping it. "Say that again," I said. Her eyes flicked toward the dining room. "I'm asking you not to make a scene." "No? The other part?" She lowered her voice further. "Drew has worked hard on tonight, and I haven't." "That isn't what I said. You handed me an apron at a dinner where everyone just toasted the work I did. You know how to plate the food. So does he. He's talking to people. I was talking to people." Her nostrils flared. "Why must everything become a comparison?" I set the apron on the counter. It landed beside a roasting pan full of sliced beef, close enough that one strap slipped into the juice. Mom snatched it out. "Caroline, I'm leaving. You can't be serious. Watch me." I walked through the dining room. People moved aside with polite confusion. Julie Mason studied her wine. Nate Parker became fascinated by a knot in the pine wall. Erin met my eyes, and whatever she saw made her set down her glass. Drew stood near the fireplace with a man I didn't know. He noticed me moving toward the door. "Where are you going?" "Home." "What?" Behind me, Mom said, "She's upset because I asked for help." A few heads turned. I kept walking. Drew caught up at the entry. "Wait. I don't want to do this here." "Then don't leave. That would keep me here." His hand hovered near my elbow but didn't touch me. "What happened?" "Ask Mom." "I did," she said. "I know what she said." He glanced into the dining room. Guests had resumed murmuring, although nobody was discussing what they had been discussing 30 seconds earlier. "Please," he said. "Dinner's ready, then serve it." The server canceled. "Yes. I didn't know Mom was going to ask you." "She didn't ask." She handed me an apron. His face changed. "What? You heard me?" He looked past me toward the kitchen. Mom had followed as far as the dining room entrance, apron hanging from one hand. "Mom," he called, "why did you give Caroline an apron?" It was to protect her sweater, the sweater she was wearing while plating dinner. Mom's chin lifted. Someone had to do it. Drew closed his eyes briefly. It was the first time I saw him understand the whole picture at once. The toast, the applause, then me being sent behind the counter while he remained in front. "I'll plate," he said. Mom made a sound of disbelief. "You can't leave your own guests. They can talk to each other for 5 minutes. He turned to me. "Stay. I'll do it." For a second, I wanted to. That was the embarrassing part. I wanted his correction to be enough because I liked the room when it had been warm. I liked Erin asking about the cabinets. I liked hearing people say I had done good work. I wanted to sit at the pine table and eat the dinner I hadn't cooked. Then Mom said, "Wonderful. Now everybody will know something happened." I opened the door. Cold air came in around me. Drew followed me onto the porch. "Don't go. I'm already gone. I gave you credit in there." I stopped. He heard himself half a second too late. "That's not what I meant," he said. I turned to face him. "You don't buy an hour of my labor with a toast." "I know. Do you?" "Yes." "Then why did you say it?" He looked toward the window. From outside, we were silhouettes to everyone in the room. "Because I'm tired," he said. "I've been here since Wednesday." The photographer needed everything changed. The coffee machine leaked. Mom rearranged every room after I arranged it. Dad can't carry anything, but he keeps trying. The woman I hired called at 4 and said she was throwing up. I'm trying to hold tonight together, and the first available solution was me. I didn't ask you. You didn't have to. That's the system." He shoved both hands into his pockets. "What do you want me to do right now? Let me leave." His face hardened. Not with anger exactly, but with the panic of someone watching an opportunity close. "If you walk out, Mom will make this the story of the night. She does that anyway. The Parkers are here. I invited people who could send bookings. This matters. I know it matters. Then can we not deal with this after dinner?" I looked through the window at Mom. She stood with the apron over her arm, speaking to Julie. Dad had taken my abandoned place at the counter and was attempting to carry the roasting pan. After dinner, everyone would tell me I should have said something sooner. I wouldn't. "You already told me not to make sure you failed." His jaw shifted. "That's not fair. No, it isn't." I went down the porch steps. Behind me, the door opened. Erin came out carrying my coat. "You forgot this," she said. "Thank you." She held it while I put my arms through the sleeves. Her expression was kind, which nearly undid me. "I'm sorry," Drew said to her. Erin looked at him. "Why are you apologizing to me?" He had no answer. She went back inside. Drew stayed on the porch as I walked to my car. When I reached the end of the driveway, I looked in the mirror. He was still standing under the lanterns. My phone began ringing before I reached the main road. Mom, then Dad, then Mom again. I turned it off. At home, the boxes were exactly where I had left them. For a moment, I resented them as if they had organized the evening. I changed out of the blue sweater and put on an old t-shirt. Then I made a grilled cheese sandwich because the smell of roast beef still clung to my clothes and I hadn't eaten. Halfway through, someone knocked. "If that's my family, I'm moving," I called. "It's your better family," Tess said through the door. I opened it. She held a paper bag and a bottle of wine. "You brought food?" "I was told there would be dinner." "By whom?" "You sent me a text that said," and I quote, "She handed me an apron." That is not a complete story. I had to come for the rest. Inside the bag were fries and 2 cheeseburgers. I made grilled cheese, put it with the other cabin artifacts. We ate at my dining table between boxes. I told her what happened, including Drew's toast. "That's almost impressive," she said. "It was. And then your mother promoted you to banquet staff. She was short a person. Your brother was short a person. Your mother volunteered you. I know, you're still doing it." "Doing what?" "Building their defense for them. I dipped a fry in ketchup. It was a difficult night. So was the sinking of the Titanic. I don't blame the iceberg on poor scheduling." My phone sat dark on the table. At 10, I turned it back on. There were 12 missed calls and 7 messages. Mom, "I cannot believe you walked out in front of everyone." Dad, "Call your mother." Drew, "I'm sorry." Again. Mom, "Your father is upset too." Dad, "We had to explain that you weren't feeling well." Mom, "At least let us know you got home safely." Drew, "Erin tore me a new one. I opened that message." Me, "Why?" Drew, "Call me." I didn't. He sent another. Drew, "She said I gave a speech about the woman who built the place and then stood there while somebody tried to make her serve it." Tess read over my shoulder. "I like Erin. She's always been nice." Drew, "She asked if I invited you because I loved you or because the napkins wouldn't fold themselves." Tess put a hand over her heart. "I love Erin." I typed, "What did you say?" Drew, "Nothing useful." A minute later, "You were right to leave." I stared at those words. Tess reached for the wine. "Be careful," she said. "About what?" Accepting the first correct sentence as full rehabilitation. I know. But the message mattered anyway. Drew didn't call again that night. Mom waited until Sunday morning. "You humiliated us," she said as soon as I answered, "Good morning." I barely slept. That seems to be happening a lot. Do you have any idea what people thought? Erin told Drew what she thought. Erin Parker has always enjoyed inserting herself. Into what? Dinner? You know what I mean? I sat on the back steps with coffee in one of the blue mugs. The basil planter was still dead. A squirrel balanced on the fence and watched me like it expected better entertainment. "You told people I wasn't feeling well," I said. "What else could we say? That you asked me to serve dinner and I left. That would make me sound awful." I took a drink. "Yes." Mom went silent. Then softly, I was overwhelmed. So was I. "I didn't think you would mind. That's the problem. I asked you because you're good at those things." "The other problem," her voice sharpened. "Am I never allowed to ask you for help again? You can ask. I can say no. You didn't say no. You left. I said I was a guest. That wasn't an answer. It was, just not the one you wanted." The squirrel leaped to the maple and disappeared. Mom took a long breath. "Your father's birthday is in 2 weeks." I closed my eyes. "What about it? We need to decide what we're doing." "We?" "Yes, Caroline, we. His family. What would you like to do?" "He always likes your lasagna." There it was. "I'm not hosting." She laughed once, disbelieving. "Of course you are. No, you host every year, not this year. Because of the apron? Because I don't want to. You can't cancel your father's birthday because you're angry with me. I'm not canceling it. You can plan it. I don't make lasagna the way you do. Make something else." "But he wants lasagna." "Then Dad can ask me." She paused. A minute later, my other line beeped. Dad was calling. I watched his name flash across the screen while Mom waited in my ear. "Did you just tell him to call me? He wants to talk to you. He wants lasagna. He wants his family back." I ended the call. Dad left a voicemail. He did not mention lasagna. He said turning his birthday into a battleground was beneath me, and he was disappointed I could not put family first for one evening. I listened once. Then I called the Italian restaurant near their house and ordered a party-sized tray of lasagna for pickup on his birthday. I paid for it, added garlic bread, and entered Dad's phone number for the confirmation. When the receipt arrived in my email, I forwarded it to him with one sentence: "Dinner is handled. Hosting isn't." He did not respond. That afternoon, I carried the dead basil to the trash. Then I drove to the garden center and bought a new plant. Not because anyone needed it. Not because it saved dinner or fixed a room or kept peace between people who had already made their choice. I bought it because I wanted basil. The basil survived its first week. My family nearly did not. Dad's birthday fell on a Thursday. At 4:30, Mom texted to ask whether the restaurant tray came with serving utensils. I sent back, "I don't know." At 4:42, "It doesn't." At 4:45, "Do you have those large black spoons?" Me, "Yes." Mom, "Could you?" Me, "You have spoons." She did not answer. I arrived at 6, carrying a birthday card and nothing else. Mom opened the door wearing an oven mitt. "You're late." The invitation said 6. "Dinner is at 6. Then I'm exactly on time for dinner." She turned and hurried toward the kitchen. The house smelled like garlic, tomato sauce, and something scorched. Dad sat in the den watching television with the volume low. He wore a button-down shirt and the expression of a man being honored against his will. "Happy birthday," I said. He looked at my empty hands. "Thank you." I gave him the card. He placed it unopened on the table beside him. "Your mother's had a day." I gathered. The restaurant forgot the salad. I didn't order salad. Apparently. He kept his eyes on the television. I sat in the armchair across from him. "How was therapy?" "Fine. You're walking better. No thanks to anyone's scheduling." There were several responses available. I let all of them pass. Dad picked up the remote and muted a truck commercial. "This is foolishness, Caroline. It's your birthday. Can we not? I'm not the one making a point." I bought dinner, with no serving spoons. I stared at him. The corner of his mouth twitched. "Did Mom tell you to say that? She may have mentioned the spoons." I laughed before I could stop myself. He smiled, but it faded quickly. "You hurt her. She hurt me. She made a mistake. You gave Drew the cabin, too." His eyes dropped to the card. So I did. That was as close as Dad came to admissions when he wasn't ready for them. He used the same tone when he backed into my mailbox and said, "There appears to have been contact." "Why?" I asked. "We told you why. You told me Drew needed it. That's why he got something. It's not why you decided the thing should be mine to lose. Dad leaned back. You were always so independent. I was 12 when that started. Oh, come on. When what started? You acting like you raised yourself. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. The phrase sounded familiar in his mouth. He looked toward the kitchen, where a metal pan clattered and Mom swore quietly. Your brother would call because his car made a noise, Dad said. You would drive yours until a wheel nearly fell off. I was trying not to bother you. We thought it meant you were capable. I was capable. You were. He said it with pride, as if capability had been a prize we all agreed I'd won. Dad, being capable doesn't mean I didn't want anybody to show up. He rubbed one thumb over the unopened envelope. Before he could answer, the front door opened and Drew called. Does anyone have a fire extinguisher? Mom shouted from the kitchen. What happened? Nothing. It was a festive entrance. Drew came into the den carrying a bakery box and a bottle of wine. He looked at me, then Dad. Great. Intimate silence. My favorite party theme. Dad pointed at the cake box. What kind? Chocolate. Your mother ordered lemon. Then we have 2 cakes. Mom appeared in the doorway. I canceled the lemon because you said you were bringing one. I said I could bring one. You also said chocolate. I did bring chocolate. I know, but your father likes lemon. Dad raised his hand. Your father is in the room and likes both. Nobody listened. Drew set the cake on the coffee table and handed Dad the wine. Happy birthday. Thank you. Did you open Caroline's card? Dad glanced down as if it had arrived without his knowledge. Not yet. Open it. Maybe there's money. Dad snorted and tore the envelope. The card showed a dog in a party hat. Inside, I had written that I loved him and hoped the year brought stronger knees and fewer reasons to spray paint the sidewalk. He read it twice. Then he held out one arm. I went to him. Dad's hugs were brief, forceful things. He pulled me against his shoulder, patted my back twice, and released me before anyone could become embarrassed. Thank you for dinner, he said. You're welcome. From the kitchen, Mom called. It's getting cold. We ate lasagna from paper plates because she had run the dishwasher late and it was still cycling. There was no salad. Mom had heated frozen green beans, which she called haricots after adding butter. The garlic bread burned around the edges. Drew ate 3 pieces. Nobody died. When Mom rose to clear the table, she looked at me automatically. I stayed seated. Drew noticed. He stood and picked up Dad's plate, then mine. Look at me, he said. Housekeeping. Mom froze. I looked at him. His face changed. Bad joke. Very? Sorry. He took the plates into the kitchen. A few minutes later, Dad asked if I wanted coffee. Dad had never made coffee for me in his life. Usually he announced that he wanted some and waited for the universe to assign a woman. Yes, I said, thank you. He made it too strong and spilled grounds on the counter. Mom followed behind him with a wet cloth, sighing until he told her to sit down. The evening did not become tender or transformative. Mom complained that the restaurant lasagna had too much fennel. Dad asked why there were no candles. Drew found a package in the junk drawer, but they were the thin emergency candles we used during power outages. We stuck 3 into the chocolate cake. Dad blew them out and said, I'm not that old. I went home before cleanup. Mom kissed my cheek at the door. Thank you for coming, she said. Not thank you for dinner. Not, I'm sorry. But her hand stayed on my shoulders for a moment longer than usual. Drew followed me outside. I didn't invite you to Alderhouse to work, he said. I know, I really didn't. I believe you. Mom just reverted. She always reverts. So do we. That landed. He leaned against my car. I hired a cleaning company. For $185 a turnover? $195. I raised my eyebrows. Apparently there are additional charges for laundry and hot tubs. You don't have a hot tub. I know. It's the principal. What principal? That $90 was insulting. I opened my car door. Yes, it was. I'm admitting it. You are. He waited for more. I got in. Good night, Drew. Good night, Care. His first guests arrived the following Friday. I knew because my phone began vibrating at 8:18 that evening. Drew, do you remember if the fireplace flue pulls left or right? I replied, left. At 8:24, the Wi-Fi isn't working. Me, call the provider. At 8:36, where are the extra blankets? Me, I took mine. Did you buy extras? At 8:38, yes, can't find them. I did not answer. At 9:11, he called. What? I found the blankets. Congratulations. They were in my car. That explains why I didn't know. The guests say the kitchen is cold. It's always cold when the wind comes off the lake. Can I turn up the heat? You own the thermostat. Will the pipes? The pipes will enjoy it. He sighed. They've asked if there's a fire pit. There's a metal ring by the water. They say they don't see it. Then it's dark. Where do we keep firewood? You keep it wherever you put it, right? I heard voices in the background. A woman laughed. A door slammed. Are you there? I asked. I came up to check them in. You're still inside the cabin with them? They had questions. They rented a private cabin. I'm leaving. Good, I'm trying, I know. He was quiet. Care? What? How did you know all this stuff? I was there. No, I mean at the beginning. When you first opened the place, I didn't know, I learned. How? Usually by doing something wrong. A beat passed. Helpful. You're welcome. His first review was 4 stars. The guests praised the lake view, the new coffee machine, and the beautifully renovated kitchen. They complained that the listing photographs showed more personal character than the actual rooms, and that the upstairs bedroom needed a reading lamp. Drew sent me a screenshot with the complaint circled. I replied, the lamp was mine. He sent back, I know. Then, a minute later, what kind was it? I almost sent him the brand. Instead, I wrote, one you can read by. Drew bought lamps. He bought blankets, mugs, wine glasses, serving platters, bath mats, a second set of sheets for every bed, a plunger, a can opener, a hair dryer, and batteries for 3 smoke detectors he had assumed were hardwired. Mom helped. She brought baskets from her house and an iron rooster that had once sat on top of the kitchen cabinets. Drew sent me a photograph of it beside the coffee machine. He wrote, your mother has begun nesting. Me. Don't feed her after midnight. Drew. I think that's gremlins. Me. Same principle. For a few days, we spoke almost normally. Then the cleaning company canceled his contract. They say it's too far out, he told me, which seems like information they possessed when they accepted the address. I was on my back steps trimming the basil. It had already doubled in size. Find another company. I called 3. And one doesn't do laundry. One wants $240. One can't start until December. Sounds like those are your options. I have guests leaving Sunday and new people coming Monday. I pinched off a flower bud. That's tight. Can you help me once? No. I'll pay the full rate. No. $250. It isn't about the money, I know, but money is the accepted medium for work. I smiled despite myself. Drew, one time. I'll be there too. I'm not asking you to do it for me. You are asking me to do it for you. I'm asking you to do it with me. No. He went quiet. I waited for the accusation, the reminder that I was sabotaging him, the appeal to Mom's blood pressure. Instead, he said, okay. Okay? I heard you. What are you going to do? I'll clean it. You have 5 bedrooms. The listing says 6. The listing lies. Then I only have to clean 5. I heard paper rustling. Do you know where I can buy sheets in bulk? Yes. Are you going to tell me? No. He laughed tiredly. Worth a shot. On Sunday, while I drank coffee from a blue mug, Drew sent a photograph. He stood in the cabin laundry room surrounded by white sheets. His hair stuck up in 5 directions. A vacuum hose looped around his ankle. The caption said, Charisma is a spreadsheet. I stared at it, recognizing Paul's description. Me. Who told you that? Drew. I ran into Paul. Me. And Drew. He was buying frozen pizza. It felt significant. Then, he also said you were right about me. I waited. Me. About what? Drew. That I thought dinner happened because someone said pot roast. A second photograph arrived. This one showed a neatly made bed beneath a new reading lamp. Drew. I'm learning where the lamp comes from. I saved the picture. I told myself it was because the lamp looked good. The following weekend, Drew got his first 2-star review. The guest said the cabin was charming, but the beds were not ready at check-in, one trash can had not been emptied, and somebody else's sock was found behind a nightstand. Drew called the sock an assassination. It was gray, he said, a completely ordinary gray sock. It was also somebody else's. Nobody has ever died from seeing a sock. That's not the standard people use when they pay to sleep somewhere. I refunded their cleaning fee. Good. That was $200. I thought it was $195. I rounded up for emotional emphasis. He sounded tired but not defeated. The next day, he sent me a photograph of a laminated checklist taped inside the laundry room. Strip beds. Start wash. Check under all furniture for hostile socks. His bookings continued, mostly weekends. He covered the mortgage-free cabin's taxes and utilities, but not much more. Every stay created a fresh expense, a broken wine glass, a stained duvet. A plumber called because a guest flushed paper towels and then insisted the toilet had been defective upon arrival. Mom began referring to the rental as Drew's business with solemn importance. Dad referred to it as the hotel whenever he was irritated. You going up to the hotel this weekend? He asked Drew at Sunday dinner. It's a cabin. It has guests. Hotels have ice machines. You have an ice maker. It makes cloudy ice. I laughed into my water. Mom looked at me. I still don't understand why that amuses everyone. The next cleaning crisis happened after a group of 6 adults stayed for a college reunion. They left the kitchen sticky, the fireplace full of half-burned cardboard, and a wet rug rolled on the porch. Drew had accepted a bartending shift at a downtown wedding because the cabin wasn't producing enough cash, and the next guests were due at 4. He called me at 8 Saturday morning. I know the answer, he said. Then this will be efficient. Can you help? No. Thank you for your time. He hung up. At 9, Mom called. Your brother is in a terrible bind. I know. He has to work. I know. Your father and I are going up. I sat on the edge of my bed, pulling on a sock. Dad shouldn't clean a 5-bedroom cabin. The listing says 6. Not helping, Mom. He won't clean, he'll supervise. We both knew that was impossible. Dad couldn't stand beside a chair without deciding it belonged somewhere else. Tell him not to lift anything. You tell him. You're calling me. You know he listens to you. He doesn't. More than he listens to me. Then don't bring him. I can't do it alone. The invitation opened between us. I let it remain empty. Mom sighed. Fine, I understand. No, you don't. But please make sure Dad stays off ladders. What ladders? I don't know. He finds them. She hung up. At 1:30, Drew called from the wedding venue. Dad hurt his knee. I stood so fast my desk chair rolled into the wall. How badly? He says it's fine. That means nothing. He tried carrying the wet rug down to the shed. He twisted coming off the porch. Where is he? Mom drove him home. He's icing it. Did he fall? No. I don't think so. You don't think? I'm hearing this third hand while wearing a vest with gold buttons, Caroline. His voice had an edge I hadn't heard since the dinner. Did the cabin get cleaned? I asked. The second I said it, I knew. Drew laughed once. There she is. What does that mean? You want to know if your refusal had the desired effect? My desired effect was not Dad getting hurt. Mom says she asked you for help. She informed me they were going. She says you knew she couldn't do it alone. You called me first, Drew. I said no. So they went. That was their decision. Everything is somebody else's decision with you now. I gripped the edge of my desk. And everything is somebody else's responsibility with you. At least, I'm trying to take responsibility. By sending Mom and Dad to clean your rental? I didn't send them. Mom volunteered. You accepted. I had guests coming. He said it as if they were weather. I closed my eyes. The silence stretched. "I need to call Dad," I said. "Right. Are you leaving work?" "I can't. I'm behind the bar until midnight." "Then who finished the cabin?" "Nobody. I canceled the booking and refunded it." A small, mean part of me felt vindicated. The larger part heard how tired he sounded. "I'm sorry," I said. "About the booking or Dad?" "Both." He hung up. Dad answered on the 5th ring. "I'm fine," he said. "Hello to you, too. Your mother's exaggerating. I haven't talked to her. She will. Can you put weight on it?" "I walked into the house, didn't I? You also carried a wet rug after knee surgery. It needed moving. It belonged to the porch. It was dripping." I pinched the bridge of my nose. "Do you need anything?" "No." "Food?" "No." "Ice?" "I have ice." "Clear or cloudy?" He laughed, then hissed in pain. "I'm coming over. I said I'm fine. I heard you." Mom opened their front door before I reached it. Her hair was damp around her face, and she wore an old Lake Alder sweatshirt over cleaning clothes. She looked smaller than usual. "He's impossible," she whispered. "Where is he?" "Den." Dad sat in his recliner with his leg raised and a bag of frozen peas over his knee. The television was tuned to a football game he wasn't watching. I crouched beside him. "Can I look?" "It's a knee." "Not an eclipse." "Dad." He moved the peas. The knee was swollen, though not grotesquely. He could bend it. He complained when I touched the inside. "You should call the orthopedic office Monday. I know that." "Do you?" He looked at me. Mom hovered in the doorway. "What happened?" I asked. "The rug was wet," Dad said. "I understand the rug's condition. It was too heavy for your mother. So you dragged it. I was carrying my end." "Who had the other end?" "Your mother." I turned. Mom folded her arms. "He said he could do it." "Mom, what? He's an adult. You keep reminding us adults make their own decisions." There it was. My boundary returned as accusation. Dad put the peas back over his knee. "No one asked you to come over and referee. I came because you were hurt. Well, now you've seen it." I stood. Mom followed me into the kitchen. The counters were crowded with bags from the cabin, dirty towels, cleaning supplies, unopened paper goods, and a plastic container of coffee pods. "I did 5 loads of laundry," she said. "That's a lot." The last guests left grease on the stove. Grease? Who cooks bacon and doesn't wipe the stove? Guests? The upstairs bathroom was disgusting. "I'm sorry." I found a wine glass under a bed. "That's where they grow." She didn't smile. "Your brother is overwhelmed." "I know. He can't keep doing all this himself. Then he needs fewer bookings or more help. He can't afford more help. Then this isn't a working business." Her eyes sharpened. "You're enjoying this." "No. Some part of you is. I could have lied. Some part of me wants you to understand what I did for years." Mom looked around the kitchen as if the answer might be hidden among the laundry bags. "You did it for yourself, too?" "Yes." "You loved that cabin?" "Yes." "Then how can you stand back while all of this happens?" The question was sincere. That was what made it so difficult. To Mom, loving something meant tending it past exhaustion and resenting anyone who noticed you had a choice. "I can love it and not belong to it," I said. "That sounds very wise." "It isn't. It hurts." Her face softened, then closed again. "We never asked you to spend all that money." "No. You just praised me every time I did. That is not the same as asking." "I know." Dad called from the den. "Diane, the peas are leaking." Mom grabbed a dish towel. As she passed me, she said, "You could have prevented today." I looked at the bags from Drew's cabin. "So could you." She stopped, but did not turn around. I went into the den and kissed Dad's forehead. "Call me if you need a ride Monday. I can drive." "I know. I'm offering." His hand closed briefly around mine. "All right," he said. He did not need the ride. Mom took him. The knee was strained, not seriously damaged, but he went back to using the cane he hated. Drew came to my house Monday evening. He stood on the porch holding a grocery bag. "What's that?" I asked. "Peace offering." Inside were 6 blue mugs. They weren't the same as mine. These were darker, mass-produced, and one had a tiny chip near the handle. I found them at a thrift store, he said. Why? Because guests like the ones in the pictures. That doesn't explain why they're here. They're not for you. I need help carrying them in. You brought 6 mugs to my house so I could help carry them to the cabin? No. He rubbed his eyes. Sorry, I haven't slept. I waited. He looked past me at the boxes still stacked in the dining room. I came to apologize for Saturday. Which part? Blaming you for Dad. I leaned against the door frame. He shouldn't have been there, Drew said. Neither should Mom. No, I canceled the next 3 bookings. That's probably smart. I also called the cleaner who wanted $240. And she's worth every penny. I smiled. He shifted the bag. I don't know if this place is going to work. The admission seemed to cost him more than the canceled bookings. Do Mom and Dad know? No. They should. They gave me the cabin because I needed one thing in my life, not to be a failure. You said wrecked. Same family. I looked at my brother standing beneath the porch light with a bag of counterfeit blue mugs. It's a building, I said. It can't fix your life. I know that now. From inside my house, the clock chimed 7. Drew looked toward the sound. Have you eaten? No. I opened the door wider. I have leftover lasagna. He smiled faintly. Restaurant or yours? Does it matter? Apparently not as much as I thought. He came inside. I did not take the mugs from him. He carried them himself. Drew set the thrift store mugs on my counter as if they were dinner guests. They're terrible, I said. I know. The pine trees look like broccoli. I know. One is chipped. That one has character. That one has tetanus. He turned it so the chip faced the wall. I heated the lasagna while he moved boxes off one dining chair. There was only room for the 2 of us if I sat sideways and kept my left foot beneath a crate labeled candles and games. Drew looked around. Are you going to unpack? Eventually. You've had weeks. I know. You give excellent advice. I learned from you. We ate without talking for a while. The lasagna had become mostly cheese at the corners, but Drew scraped his plate clean. Mom wants to take over the rentals, he said. I set down my fork. In what sense? She says she can coordinate cleaners and laundry. Mom thinks email is what happens when the post office gets impatient. I'm aware. Is she serious? She made a spreadsheet. That frightened me more. What's on it? Colors. Of course. She highlighted weekends green for booked, yellow for tentative, and pink for personal use. Every weekend in December is pink because she wants to decorate. Tell her no. I did. And? She bought garland. I laughed. Drew smiled, then looked at his empty plate. I'm going to stop renting through the winter. You said you canceled 3 bookings. I did. There are 2 more in November. After that, I'm done until spring. That makes sense. Dad says I'm giving up. Dad carried a wet rug on a repaired knee. He also says it builds character. Did the rug build his? Mostly swelling. I took our plates to the sink. Drew remained at the table. Why aren't you saying I told you so? I don't need to. That has never stopped you before. I rinsed the dishes. He came into the kitchen and leaned against the counter beside the terrible mugs. I knew you should have the cabin, he said. The water continued running over my hands. When? When they first brought it up. I shut off the faucet. And you waited until now to say that? I said I told them you should be included. That isn't the same. I know. Did you tell them no? No. Did you tell them it should be mine? He studied the floor. Not exactly. What did you say exactly? That you had put a lot into it. That you might be upset. Might. I was trying to have the conversation without making them defensive. How'd that work? It got me a cabin. I dried my hands. He looked tired enough that anger had nowhere satisfying to land. Why did you take it? I asked. You know why. I know the reasons everyone gave me. I want yours. He pushed the chipped mug back into line with the others. When Paul changed the locks at Thistle, my name was still painted on the window. I stood outside with my key in my hand while 2 servers watched me from behind the bar. I waited. I called Mom because I didn't know who else to call. She said, "Come home. We'll find something that's yours." The cabin. Not then. Later. He rubbed his thumb along the counter edge. When they offered it, it felt like proof that I hadn't lost everything. Like maybe they still saw somebody worth betting on. So you let them pay for that feeling with something I built. Yes. The word was quiet. I had imagined him admitting it many times. In those versions, I delivered a sentence so precise it left him speechless. Sitting in my crowded kitchen with refrigerated lasagna between us, I had nothing. "Do you hate me?" he asked. "No." "Do you wish you did?" "Sometimes." He nodded. I should go. At the door, I handed him the bag of mugs. "Take your broccoli forest. They were meant to be rustic. They're a hate crime against trees." He smiled, then hugged me. "I'm sorry, Care. I did not say it was all right." I hugged him back. Mom's Thanksgiving spreadsheet had 9 colors. She emailed it to all of us with a note saying she wanted a low-stress, collaborative holiday. My assignment was pie. Drew had turkey and gravy. Dad was responsible for wine, which Mom had highlighted blue because beverages were blue. I bought the pie. At dinner, Mom lifted the bakery lid and stared at it. "You didn't make one?" My assignment said pie. I assumed homemade. Then the spreadsheet needed another column. Dad cut himself a piece before dinner and declared it excellent. Mom told him he was undermining the meal structure. Drew burned 1 batch of gravy, opened the kitchen window to clear the smoke, and made another. We ate 40 minutes late. Nobody asked me to fix anything. When Mom had trouble lifting the turkey platter, she started to call my name, stopped, and asked, "Would you mind?" I helped her. The distinction was tiny. It mattered. Afterward, Dad and Drew did the dishes. Mom hovered until Dad handed her a glass of wine and told her to go sit with me. She lowered herself onto the couch. "I don't like being a guest in my own kitchen." "You're not. I feel useless. You cooked 4 side dishes, but they're doing the cleaning. That doesn't make you useless." She looked toward the kitchen. Water ran. Drew laughed at something Dad said. "I suppose this is what you've been trying to tell me." I turned to her. She immediately stiffened. I said, "I suppose. I heard you. That doesn't mean I agree with everything." "I know." She smoothed an invisible wrinkle in her skirt. "The bakery pie was good. Thank you. It needed more cinnamon." "There she is." Her mouth twitched. The first hard freeze came 2 days after Christmas. By then, Drew had stopped taking guests. He left the heat low at the cabin and drove up every few days to check the pipes. He sent me photographs of the lake changing from dark steel to white at the edges. I never asked for them. I always opened them. At 11:40 on a Wednesday night, my phone rang. Drew's name glowed against the dark. I answered before the second ring. "What happened? How do you know something happened? You don't call at midnight to discuss mugs. Roof's leaking." I sat up. "Where?" "Back bedroom. Water's coming down near the window." "How much?" "Enough that I'm calling you." "Are you at the cabin?" I drove up after the temperature rose. There's ice on the back eave. I think it's dammed. Wind pressed against my bedroom window. "Put buckets under the leak. Move the bed." I did. "Is water near the outlet?" "No." "Are you sure?" "Yes." I turned on the lamp. For 6 years, emergencies at the cabin had moved through my body before I could think. I was already calculating drive time, looking for my jeans, imagining the ladder stored beside the shed. Then I stopped. Drew heard the silence. "What?" "There's a tarp in the shed. Top shelf behind the folded chairs." "Okay. You'll need someone to help secure it." "Who?" "Call Nate." "At midnight?" "He told me once to call if the roof ever leaked, or call the emergency roofing number in the binder. Are you coming?" The question was naked. I put my feet on the floor. "No. Care. I told you what to do. The roads are bad. That's another reason I'm not coming. You know where everything is. So does the binder. It's a roof leak." "I know." He breathed into the phone. Wind roared on his end, rattling something metal. "What if it gets worse?" "Then you call a professional." They won't come tonight. Nate might. And if he doesn't, then you protect the room as best you can and wait until morning." His voice sharpened. "You're willing to let the cabin be damaged to prove a point?" I stood. "No, that's what this is. I already saved that cabin once, Drew. So now you're done caring?" "I didn't say that. You won't come. I can care about it without being its emergency service." Water dripped in the background with a slow, hollow rhythm. He said, "How can you listen to this and stay home?" I looked around my bedroom. Grandma's quilts were stacked on the cedar chest. One of the botanical prints leaned against the wall because I still had not hung it, because saving it forever was never the agreement. He went quiet. The sentence settled between us. Finally, he said, "Top shelf behind the chairs?" "Yes." "Where are the bungee cords?" "Red bin under the workbench." "Of course there's a red bin. Call Nate first. He'll hate me." "Nate loves storms. This will make his week." Drew let out a tired breath. "Okay, text me when the leak is covered. I thought you weren't involved." "I'm your sister. I'm not your caretaker." He did not answer for a moment. "Right," he said. "I'm still learning the difference." He called Nate. Nate came over in insulated coveralls, bringing a roof rake and an amount of enthusiasm Drew later described as clinically inappropriate. They cleared the ice from the lower edge, secured a tarp, and moved the soaked mattress into the hall. At 1:38, Drew texted, "Contained. Nate says hello and also says my ladder angle is an insult to geometry." Me. "Listen to Nate." At 1:41, "I'm sorry I said you wanted damage." Me. "Go to bed." Drew. "Bed is wet." Me. "Go to couch." Drew. "Couch has gather signs staring at it." Me. "Turn it around." The next afternoon, a roofer found that meltwater had backed beneath a section of shingles near the dormer. The repair was not catastrophic, but it cost more than Drew had made on his last 4 bookings. Mom called me when she heard. "You knew that roof had trouble there." "No, I didn't. You repaired that area 6 years ago. Couldn't you have warned him? About weather? About what to watch?" "He had the maintenance notes. He's not going to understand notes the way you do. Then he has to ask a roofer." Mom sighed. "Everything is so simple to you now." "No, it's just no longer mine to solve. You sound cold." I looked out at my backyard. Snow covered the basil planter, though I had moved the plant inside before the freeze. "I'm trying not to be," I said. Drew came by Sunday. He did not bring a peace offering. He brought the gray binder, swollen from damp, and set it on my table. "Why is this here?" I asked. "I made a copy." He sat across from me. "The roofers fixed it. The bedroom needs paint, but the ceiling will dry." "Good. I slept there 2 nights. Why?" "I wanted to make sure nothing else happened." I waited. He looked around the dining room at the cabin's displaced objects. "I can't do this forever," he said. "Rent it, own it." I sat back. He rubbed both hands over his face. "I keep thinking if I sell it, I prove Dad right about me. Dad gave you a cabin, not a test. In this family, what's the difference?" I had no answer. Drew looked at the gray binder. "If I sell, they'll hate me. They'll be hurt. Mom will call it losing the family place. She gave away the family place." He nodded slowly. "I want to give it back to you." My heart moved before I could stop it. Then he added, "But I need you to tell me it will fix everything." "It won't," I said. Drew's hands dropped from his face. "You could take it back." "I could. You still love it." "I do. You know how to take care of it. That's not the argument you think it is." He leaned back in the dining chair. It creaked under him. "I'm offering you the thing you wanted. I wanted you not to accept it." His expression tightened. "That's impossible now." "Yes. So nothing I do matters?" "That isn't what I said. You said giving it back won't fix anything. It won't fix dinner. It won't fix Mom telling me her promises weren't legal promises. It won't fix you offering me $90 to clean it. $195 is the market rate." I looked at him. "Sorry, bad timing. Very." He rubbed his eyes. "What would happen if you gave it to me?" I asked. "You'd own the cabin, and Mom and Dad would visit." Probably. Mom would want Thanksgiving there. Dad would find projects. You'd come up when you felt nostalgic. Who would open it in spring? He stared at me. Who would handle a roof leak? You would. It would be yours. And when I said I was tired, he looked down at the gray binder. I answered for him. Mom would say, I loved the place. Dad would say I was good at it. You'd say you didn't know how. That's not fair. Is it wrong? He didn't answer. The cabin had always been more than a building, but not in the noble way people said about family places. It was a job everyone loved because I made the work disappear. Drew tapped the binder with one finger. So you don't want it? I almost said yes. Instead, I pictured the porch in morning fog, Grandma's dinner bell, snow along the green railing, the kitchen before anyone else woke, coffee steaming in a blue mug. My chest ached. I want what I thought it meant, I said. He looked at me. I don't want it handed back because you're exhausted. That would make me the dependable backup again. You think that's what I'm doing? Partly. He considered that longer than I expected. Partly, he admitted. I sat across from him while the heat clicked on and boxes crowded the room. What are you going to do? I asked. I don't know. Yes, you do. He let out a slow breath. I'm going to sell it, then sell it. Just like that? No, not just like that. You'll hurt people. You'll lose something. You may regret it. Strong sales pitch. But it's yours. That's what ownership is. His mouth twisted. You've become very irritating. I've had more free time. He laughed. Then he put his hand on the binder. Will you come when I tell them? No. Caroline, this is your decision. They're going to blame you anyway. That doesn't make it my meeting. He looked genuinely afraid. For most of our lives, Drew's fear had created a vacancy, and I had stepped into it. I stood and carried our coffee cups to the sink. You can do it, I said. That sounds supportive. It is. It doesn't feel supportive. That's because I'm not doing it for you. He left the binder on my table. I called him back from the porch and made him take it. Drew told our parents the following Sunday. I knew the exact moment because Mom called me 7 times in 11 minutes. I was at a hardware store holding 2 paint samples against a display light. One was called Toasted Almond. The other was called Quietude, which seemed like an unreasonable promise from beige paint. On the 8th call, I answered. What happened? You know what happened. I don't. Your brother is selling the cabin. A man examining drill bits glanced at me. I know he was considering it. Considering it? He told me. Mom's breath sharpened. When? Last week. And you said nothing. It wasn't my news. You could have stopped him. There was the assignment. Punctual as ever. No. He says you refused to take it. That's true. Why? I moved away from the drill bits. Because I don't want it that way. What way? Free? Returned because he discovered its work. That is the most stubborn thing I have ever heard. Probably not. Your father is devastated. Then you should talk to him. I am talking to you. I mean Dad. She made a frustrated sound. We gave Drew a chance. You made sure he felt incapable at every step. I didn't make the beds wrong or leave a hostile sock. This is not funny. I know. You took the heart out of that place and then you stood back while he failed. I took my things. You took yourself. Yes. The words stopped her. I looked at the 2 paint samples in my hand. I had come to choose a color for my back door. Months after meaning to do it, I was finally standing in the aisle. I'm not going to apologize for that, I said. Mom's voice lowered. The cabin is where our family was happiest. The cabin is where I worked hardest. That isn't all it was. No, but it was part of it, and none of you wanted to see that. We saw it. You applauded it. That's different. She started to cry. I remained in the paint aisle. I have to go, I said. Of course you do. I bought Quietude because Toasted Almond looked pink near the register. Dad arrived at my house while I was sanding the back door. He stepped through the side gate using his cane and stopped when he saw the dust mask. You're painting in January? It's the inside. You'll have brush marks. I'm rolling it. That'll leave texture. I pulled down the mask. Hello, Dad. He leaned his cane against the fence and lowered himself into a metal chair. The basil had returned to the kitchen window for winter, so only the empty ceramic planter sat between us. Your mother thinks you engineered this, he said. Do you? No. That surprised me. He looked at the half-sanded door. You could have taken the cabin. I know. Why didn't you? I sat on the step. Drew asked the same thing. I'm asking now. I told him. Dad listened without interrupting, which was rare enough to feel like weather. When I finished, he stared at the fence. I thought you'd be happy if it came back to you. I would have been relieved. That's not the same. No. He nodded. I should have given it to you in the first place. The words were plain. No speech, no explanation wrapped around them. I set the sandpaper beside me. Yes. He flinched. I could have softened it. I didn't. After a while, Dad said, Your brother says he's listing in spring. That makes sense. Your mother wants us to buy it from him. Can you? Probably, if we emptied some accounts we shouldn't empty. Then don't. She says we can't let it leave the family. It left when you gave it to Drew. He looked at me. The truth hurt him. It hurt me too. I didn't understand the difference, he said. I know. He rubbed both hands over the top of his cane. Will you come to the cabin once before it sells? I don't know. Your mother wants a final family weekend. That sounds terrible. A laugh escaped him. It does, doesn't it? We sat on the back steps until the cold drove him inside. I made coffee. He examined the terrible blue mug Drew had left behind and said the pine tree looked like broccoli. In April, Drew listed the cabin. The photographs showed white mugs, new lamps, cream pillows, and Mom's iron rooster. The gather sign was gone. The listing described the house as lovingly restored without saying by whom. I read it twice. Then I closed it. There were 3 offers within the first week. Drew accepted one from a couple named Jack and Simone who lived outside Milwaukee and wanted a place where their adult friends could visit. They liked the old woodwork. They planned to keep the green railing. Drew called to tell me. They asked about the dinner bell, he said. What about it? Whether it works. It does. I told them Grandma used it to call everyone in. She used it when she wanted another drink and didn't feel like getting up. He laughed. I left that part out. Probably wise. The sale closes next month. All right. Mom won't speak to me. She will. Dad says he understands. Do you believe him? About 60%. That's progress. Drew went quiet. I'm sorry, he said. You've said that. I know. I'm trying to say it when I'm not also asking for something. You're getting better. The week before closing, Mom demanded a final dinner at the cabin. I almost refused. Then Dad called and said, no speeches, no projects, store-bought food. I agreed. The cabin smelled different when I entered. Fresh paint covered the water stain in the back bedroom. Half the closets were empty. Boxes lined the hall, filled with the objects Mom and Drew had brought during the rental months. Mom stood in the kitchen wrapping the iron rooster in newspaper. She looked at me and immediately looked away. Drew ordered pizza from town. We ate at the pine table on paper plates. No one said much until Mom reached for a second slice and found the box empty. You ordered 1 pizza? She asked Drew. I thought Dad said store-bought food. For 4 adults. I got an extra large. Your father ate 4 pieces. I'm sitting right here, Dad said. Mom put down her empty plate. I spent 39 years feeding this family, and this is how the cabin ends, with not enough pizza. It was so perfectly Mom that I laughed. Drew laughed too. Dad opened a bag of potato chips he had hidden beside his chair. Mom tried not to smile and failed. For 10 minutes, we were a family at a table instead of 4 people defending separate versions of the past. Then Mom walked to the window. I hope you're both satisfied, she said. Drew's smile faded. No, he said. I'm not. She turned. I couldn't keep it, Mom. You didn't try long enough. I tried exactly as long as I could afford. You could have asked us. You already gave me too much. Mom looked at me. And you? What about me? You got what you wanted. I looked around the kitchen. The cabinets were still blue. The pine table still carried a small burn mark from the night Drew tried to flambe bananas. Beyond the window, evening settled across Lake Alder. No, I said, I didn't. Drew placed both hands flat on the table. This was my decision. Mom's eyes filled. She pushed you. No, she stopped, catching me. The room went silent. Drew looked at me. It was not an apology. It was better. It was the truth spoken when it cost him something. After dinner, I went room to room alone. I touched the upstairs windowsill, the repaired headboard, the smooth kitchen counter. On the porch, I rang Grandma's dinner bell once. The sound traveled over the lake and disappeared. I left it hanging there. At closing, Drew paid back every dollar Mom and Dad had spent furnishing the rental. He settled the remaining bills and put most of the proceeds away while he decided what came next. Then he came to my house carrying an envelope. I did not invite him in. What is it? Your restoration money. My stomach tightened. I didn't ask for that. I know. How much? What I could verify from your receipts, plus the roof. The old roof was part of the property you sold. It was part of the value I received. I opened the envelope and stared at the check. It did not repay the weekends, the bruises, or the years. It was not enough to buy another cabin. It was enough to change what I could look for. I can't take this if you're trying to buy forgiveness, I said. I'm not. What are you buying? He looked past me through the screen door at the boxes still stacked in my dining room. A lamp, he said, maybe some room around it. 2 days later, Tess sent me a real estate listing. Small cottage, Lake Alder. Needs work, she wrote. Beneath that, don't panic. Read the last line. I opened it. At the bottom of the listing, after the square footage and the aging furnace, were 4 words. No shared ownership interests. I called Tess. Did you read it? She asked. I read it. And it has 1 bathroom. You currently have 1 bathroom. It has a furnace older than Marcus. Marcus is very reliable. It says seasonal lake view. That means you can see water when the leaves fall off. I know what it means. Do you want me to call the agent? No. Will you? I don't know. Tess became silent. I looked through my kitchen at the crowded dining room. Grandma's quilts, the botanical prints, the canoe paddles, and the lamps were still waiting for a place to become themselves again. Yes, I said. The cottage stood 3 miles farther down the lake, on a smaller lot where the road curved inland. Tess had been right about the view. In May, with the trees fully leafed out, I could see 1 silver triangle of water if I stood at the left corner of the porch and leaned. The real estate photographs had been generous in other ways too. The siding was pale yellow except where it had faded to gray. The porch sloped. 1 kitchen drawer had no bottom. The living room smelled like old carpet and the lavender powder someone had used to disguise old carpet. Tess pushed open a bedroom closet. Look, she said, additional bathroom. That's a mop bucket. Plumbing is plumbing. Marcus stood near the front window, studying the ceiling. The roof looks good, he said. Are you saying that because I look frightened? Yes. But it also looks good. The cottage had 2 bedrooms, a narrow kitchen, and a stone fireplace that had been sealed years earlier. The back door opened onto a deck no bigger than my parents' dining table. Beyond it, stone steps descended toward a shared path along the lake. There was no dock, no big porch, no room for 6 fictional bedrooms. I walked through twice. In the smaller bedroom, afternoon light fell across wide pine floorboards hidden beneath worn carpet. I pulled up 1 corner. The floor was scratched but solid. Don't start sanding, Tess said from the doorway. I'm looking. You have the face. What face? The cabin face. I let go of the carpet. The check from Drew covered most of the down payment. My savings covered the rest without emptying them. The monthly payment would be uncomfortable but possible if I stopped spending every vacation fixing property for free. I made an offer that afternoon. When it was accepted, I sat in my car outside the grocery store and cried again. This time, there was no blue mug in my lap, just a bag of frozen vegetables melting on the passenger seat while I read the message over and over. I told Drew first. He answered from his new job at a hotel downtown where he had become the evening events manager. "You bought a cottage?" "I'm buying one." "On Lake Alder?" "Yes." "How far from the old place?" 3 miles. He was quiet. "Are you angry?" I asked. "No. I'm trying to figure out why this feels like being punched and hugged at the same time. That sounds inconvenient." "Very." I used the check. "I hoped you would. You didn't know I'd find a place. I knew you'd find room for a lamp." I closed my eyes. "I'll need help moving." "I have a car. You have a small car. I know someone with a truck. Is it Marcus?" "No. I know 2 people with trucks now. I'm growing." Mom reacted exactly as badly as expected. "You refused the family cabin and bought a smaller one?" "Yes. One you have to pay for." "Yes." "Farther from town." "Yes. With 1 bathroom. I've heard." She sat at her kitchen table with the listing printed in front of her. Dad stood behind her wearing reading glasses while he examined the photographs over her shoulder. "This kitchen is tiny," Mom said. "It's enough for me. Where will everyone sit at Thanksgiving?" "I'm not buying it for Thanksgiving." Her head lifted. Dad took off his glasses. "Diane." "What?" "It's a reasonable question. It's Caroline's place." "So was the other one, according to everyone." "No," I said. "It wasn't." Mom looked down at the listing. "That's why this one matters." She touched the photograph showing the little yellow cottage from the road. "You wouldn't let us give you a cabin," she said, "but you'll take Drew's money." The sentence struck exactly where she intended. I folded my hands beneath the table. Drew paid part of what I spent. He didn't buy the cottage for me. "We would have paid you back if you had asked." "Would you?" "Of course." Dad looked at her. Mom's certainty faltered. "The point is," she said, "you could have had something much nicer. The point is, I chose this." She turned toward the window. Her reflection hovered in the dark glass. "I suppose you won't want our help. I'll want help if you're offering." She looked back. "What's the difference?" "I won't accept help that turns into ownership." Her face tightened, but she nodded. Dad studied another photograph. "That porch needs leveling." "I know. I can show you how. You can sit in a chair and tell Marcus how." "I can still use a jack." "No." He frowned. "No," I repeated. After a moment, he said, "Fine." But Marcus had better know where the load points are. Closing took place on a bright morning in June. When I unlocked the cottage for the first time, I expected something dramatic. A rush, a sign, maybe Grandma's perfume drifting through a room she had never entered. Instead, the key stuck. I jiggled it, pushed my shoulder against the door, and nearly fell inside when the frame gave way. The cottage smelled like dust and hot wood. I stood alone in the living room. Then I locked the door from the inside. The first workday started at 8. Drew arrived at 7:30 carrying coffee and breakfast sandwiches. "You're early," I said. "I'm trying a new personality. How is it?" "Exhausting." He set the food on the counter. "What needs doing?" There was a list taped to the wall. Remove carpet, pull staples, clean cabinets, photograph the alarming furnace label. Do not touch the porch. Drew read it. "What do you want me to do?" The old Drew would have grabbed the most visible tool, started the loudest job, and left before cleanup. "Bedroom carpet," I said. "Both rooms. Start with one." "Where do you want the old carpet?" Rolled in the driveway. Got it. He did not suggest a better plan. He did not ask where every tool was. He found gloves, carried a utility knife down the hall, and started. At 8:15, Tess and Marcus arrived with more coffee. At 9, Aaron and Nate came from across the lake. Nate brought 3 pry bars and opinions about the porch. Dad arrived with a folding chair and a toolbox I recognized from the old cabin. Mom followed with sandwiches. She entered the kitchen, looked at the missing drawer bottom, and said, "Oh dear, good morning to you too. I can fix that." I laughed. She gave me an offended look. "I can." "How?" "Your father explained it." Dad called from the living room. I said we could fix it. Mom ignored him. She cleaned the cabinets without reorganizing my supplies. That might have been the greatest display of restraint in our family's history. By late afternoon, the carpet was gone. The pine floors were scratched, stained, and beautiful. Drew sat against the wall with dust in his hair. "Do not say lumberjack," I told him. I was going to say floor pirate. Worse. He smiled. Over the next 2 months, the cottage changed slowly. Marcus leveled the porch with Dad directing from a chair and being correct often enough to remain unbearable. Tess painted the bedrooms. Mom repaired the kitchen drawer, although Dad had to cut the replacement bottom. She signed the underside with a pencil. Diane Mercer. Useful. I found it before she installed it and added, "sometimes." She discovered my addition a week later and did not speak to me for 11 minutes. Drew came every Saturday he wasn't working. He learned to patch nail holes, scraped old varnish from window trim, and made lunch without asking what everyone wanted. Usually sandwiches. Once, an ambitious soup that tasted mostly of celery. When I told him I could finish the smaller bedroom alone, he nodded and went home. That mattered too. I hung the botanical prints in the living room. Grandma's quilts went on the beds. The copper colander hung beside the window, where afternoon light turned it orange. The blue mugs filled an entire shelf. I put the canoe paddles above the back door, even though there was no canoe. They looked like they belonged. My first supper at the cottage was for the people who had helped me move and work. Tess and Marcus came. Aaron and Nate drove around the lake with a bowl of potato salad. Drew arrived early with 2 grocery bags. "What needs doing?" he asked. I looked around. The table was set. The food was ready. Music played from a speaker on the windowsill. No potatoes needed checking. No chairs needed carrying. No apron waited on the counter. "Open the wine," I said. He did. Mom learned about the supper because Dad saw a photograph Tess posted. She called the next morning. "I didn't know you were entertaining. I had some friends over, and Drew." "Yes." I thought this cottage was supposed to be a fresh start. It is. Apparently, for everyone except your father and me. I sat on the little deck with coffee. Through the trees, my silver triangle of lake flashed in the sun. It was a thank you dinner for the people who helped move. We helped. You helped repair. That sounds like a technicality. It is. She sighed. "When are you going to host the whole family?" "I don't know. Thanksgiving? No. Christmas. I'll invite everyone when I'm ready." "Caroline, I mean it, Mom." She was quiet. In the background, Dad asked her where his cane was. "By the door," I said automatically. Mom heard. "So you do still know everything. I know where Dad leaves his cane, and yet you're making us wait for an invitation." "Yes." She took a breath. I waited for crying, accusation, or a reminder that family should not need permission. Instead, she said, "All right." She did not sound happy, but she heard me. After we hung up, I carried my mug inside. Drew had left the wine opener on the counter the night before. Tess had forgotten a sweater over a chair. One of Nate's serving spoons sat in the sink. Ordinary evidence that people had been there and gone home without leaving their lives for me to manage. I washed the spoon and set it aside for Nate. Then I unlocked the front door and stepped onto the porch. The green paint was still drying along the railing. I had chosen it without trying to match the old cabin, but in the morning light it looked almost the same. The key rested warm in my palm. There was no red thread tied through it yet. I went inside, found some in the kitchen drawer, and tied it myself.